Om Mahamaye Jaganmataha Kalike Ghora Dakshine Grihana Vandanam Devi Namaste Parameshwari. Om Grihana Vandanam Mataha Sada Vijaya Vardhini Pada Padmam Sada Vande Sthanam Dehi Padambuje. O Mahamayi, salutations to the confoundress, the sorceress who deludes the entire universe. Mahamayi Jaganmata, to the mother of the entire world. She is Kali, Kalikam Dakshanam Divyam, that divine Kali who gives boons and who conquers death. Mundamala Vibhushitam, who is garlanded in skulls. Please accept my prayer, O terrifying goddess. Salutations to that mother ever victorious. To her, please accept this prayer. Keep me forever at thy lotus feet. I am always praying to your lotus feet. Om Shrimat Sura Sura Radhya Charanam Buruhadvayam Jara Jara Jagadhatrim Kalikam Banamamyam. I bow to Kali. You are worshipped by gods and demons alike. Shrimat Sura Sura Radhya. I'm always praising your lotus feet. Charanam Buruhadvayam. You are present in the moving and unmoving, wholly immanent in the sentient and insentient. May this be an offering to that. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. That's like Sri Ramakrishna. So, now that we're all basking, as it were, in the afterglow of Kali Puja, I thought we could make a few quote-unquote closing statements, except that's not entirely, strictly speaking, true of us, because as bhaktas of Mother Kali, it's not a seasonal thing that we do. Of course, Kali Puja is the season when we really go hard, because that's the season for Mother Kali. But for worshippers of Mother Kali, the worshippers of the goddess in this particular aspect, or this particular modality, which is present in many different traditions, it's all year round. So sometimes we feel like it's only the waning moon that corresponds to the energies that we call our goddess, or like it's only the dark half of the year during the autumn or the winter months in which we feel her presence more tangibly. And that might be true, like generally speaking, on the whole, but for Kali Bhaktas, we argue every day is a waning moon day. Like yesterday we were doing the Homa and we were stating the intention of the Homa, which requires that we name like what day we're performing the ceremony, both in terms of the solar and the lunar calendar. So we're like Vishnuram Tat Sadadya, Kartik Masi, Tula Rashishte Bhaskare, in the month of Kartik, during the solar house of Tula, which is Libra. And then I said, Krishna Pakshe. And then Anandaji was like, hey? I was like, wait, what? It's not the waning fortnight anymore? And he's like, no, it's the Shukla Paksha now. It's like the moon is waxing. I was like, what day is it of the moon? Because I thought it was the new moon. And he said, no, I thought it was like the days after the new moon. And he said, it's the Tritiya Shukla Paksha. I was like, the moon is already waxing. It's its third day now? That blew my mind. Because the bhava that we're entering into as a result of Kali Puja is a new moon bhava, a waning moon bhava. And it was like, as I was doing the Sankalpa, unconscionable to me that the moon should be waxing. But I think that's an important point, that like at a certain point of absorption, one has this contained energy within the circuit of one's Guru Mandala, within the worship of one's puja krama, where like it's always that time and always that place in this place, as it were, because that's the energy that's being curated, but more importantly, an energy that's being established, sthapana, which is something I want to talk about a little bit today. So it's always a new moon for the worshippers of Mother Kali. It's always a waning moon. It's always the dark half of the year. And arguably, it's always Kali Puja. Every day is Kali Puja. So what maybe some people might do once a year as an observance of the festival known as Kali Puja, bhaktas, devotees of Mother Kali, will be doing it all year round, perhaps just on Tuesdays, maybe just on Saturdays, which, as you know, are days sacred to Mother Kali, perhaps just on new moons, perhaps on the waning 8th moon, but likely on some level, in one way, shape, or form, every day. Likely, there's some kind of Kali Puja occurring in the households of those who are worshipping the Divine Mother every single day, no matter what. Even if it's just a simple arati, even if it's just a waving of camphor lights and offering some water and some flowers and some fragrance. Even just that is what it is to worship the goddess Kali. And that happens all the time, so I shouldn't say that these are some closing notes or something. But more or less, I want to reflect a little bit on the extended puja. And there are some sections, I think some segments of the worship that we would include in a much bigger puja that we might maybe not involve in like a smaller puja. I think one main thing is the visarjan, the immersion. Not necessarily the immersion of the murti, although it can very well be the murti, but at least of the gata. So I want to talk a little bit tonight about some of those like lesser known, maybe seasonal aspects of Kali Puja, but mainly I want to point you to their philosophical depth and their aesthetic profundity, because they're really beautiful moments in the puja that we don't really get to talk about a lot because they're kind of specialized. For example, Ghata Sthapana, which is bringing the energy of the goddess into the water contained within a vessel, a kalasha or a ghata. Obviously, the vessel represents the womb of the Divine Mother, so we're bringing into that vessel the energy which we're going to pray to. And in many temples, the worship is performed to just the ghata. The ghata is like the central image in which Mother's energies are invoked and in which they are contacted. So that element, which of course is like pre-Neolithic, at least Neolithic, if not pre-Neolithic goddess tradition of worshipping the goddess in a pot, an earthenware jar, like that's maintained and that's brought into the ritual space. And there's a process by which the ghata is given prana, energy, enlivenment. It's called pratishta or sthapana, the establishing or the invoking of energy into the water contained within a pot. And of course, the constituents of the water are quite complex. So it's not just water, it's also like maybe dust from outside a sex worker's house, or maybe it's like the 9 jewels or the 5 jewels like we discussed during Durga Puja. Like the energy of particular rocks have to be brought into stones and crystals like that. But also maybe for Kali Puja, like wine or like blood, like menses for instance, things like this. For Chinnamasta Yantra, of course, blood is very important. And then what kind of blood will determine what kind of form that we bring into the image. So like all of the, bring into the pot. So all of those details, then there's a fruit, and there's some plants, and there's some rituals involving those that I think are worth looking at. So there's that, there's Ghata Sthapana. And while the Ghata is being worshipped, also a yantra is being worshipped, which is a sacred like geometrical pattern that corresponds to the way the yantra is seen in a higher level of experience. So when I say the mantra, when I say Mother Kali's mantra, the sonic and visual representation of that mantra is the yantra. So because what I'm worshipping actually is Kali, and importantly Kali is a vidya, and vidya is the feminine form in Sanskrit of the word mantra. Like, so mantra would be that sacred sound or vibration that corresponds to a male deity. Vidya would be the same concept but for a female deity. So Kali Vidya, or like Sri Vidya, Kali Vidya, it's the knowledge of and the practice of and the worship of Kali, but more technically it means practicing with a mantra. That's like the technical and like precise meaning of Kali Vidya. Like if you took Shri Vidya, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're worshipping the Shri Chakra or worshipping Goddess Lalita Tripura Sundari. It might just mean that you are chanting her mantra, which is the equivalent of doing her puja, performing her homa, and like, interacting with her in any way, shape or form, because she is that mantra. So similarly, to take Kali mantra is to enter into the lineage, but it's also to like have a viable form of contacting the goddess, which in and of itself is complete. So you don't need anything else but the mantra actually for this form of Tāntrik Sādhana. It's just about establishing a relationship with a particular vibration in the one reality, and then through that one particular vibration, accessing the whole. But that only requires that you have her name. And once you have her name, you have her, as it were. The mantra, the receiving of the mantra, or rather, to be precise, the vidya, is all that the tradition requires. That being said, from that vidya, from that central vidya, you get so many different ways of approaching the tradition. So like the yantra would be the visual depiction of the vidya. And in the yantra, all the deities are situated. So Mother Kali, along with her 2 consorts, Bhairava and Sadashiva, they're all 3 of them there in the Bindu. Jai Ma Devi, Jai Ma, Mata Meri Ki Jai. You guys, it was amazing. On Monday night, we did Kali Puja, and it was like one of my favorite and perhaps one of the best Kali Pujas that we did in this house. That's because I got a chance to like do like puja while Rakta Rupini Devi was singing. And it was really interesting because like when I was in Denver, I had Rakta Rupini do like, she was like inspired to like do some kirtan before. I had this thought that it was going to be kirtan. And I went to like shower and get the altar ready, and Ma, you were just like filling the room. What I thought was like, I wasn't prepared for that, but it wasn't kirtan. It was an invocation. It was like the use of the voice to channel energies and then flow with those energies. So it can't be kirtan because it cannot be bound to like, a dialogue with an audience. And nor can it be kirtan because it cannot be bound to any lyrical structure, any like meter,
I have a long video of it.
Yeah, and Jai. No, you have a video of Kali Puja night. This I'm talking about Denver.
Oh, yeah.
But okay, I'll come to that. So in Denver, I was like, oh yeah, Ma, lead some kirtan. I had no idea like what was gonna happen. So I went, but then it was like I had this idea. I was like, this is really powerful. Like the use of like Ikaro is like how you would have in some traditions you use Ikaro to like bring energies in like that. I was feeling it in like a kind of Isis, Mother Mary, dark feminine form, and like that kind of that use of the voice in that particular context. It's like the worlds were colliding. So in Denver, Devi did that for a little while, and then I did the puja, and it felt like when I started the puja, it was like everything was already warmed up. It was amazing. It's like when you pick up the guitar and you want to play some scales or something, but you find that you're already all loose and you can just like plunge into the music. It was like that. So much of the puja is warming up. But imagine warming up when you're already warmed up. Like Denver, that Saturday night in Denver, Radhashtami, it was such a powerful puja for me, whose effects were like, I mean, obviously life-changing, but felt long after the puja. It was significant. So then this time around, it was really exciting because we were very lucky. Rakta Rupini was here. So she just played music throughout the whole puja and did the invocation as I was doing the puja. Like while the two things were happening together, it was really something special. So Jayarata is saying he's got a nice video. I know, it was amazing. I just flooded with joy and I'm so happy that you're here, Ma.
Jairata, send it to me.
Ma, come back.
Oh, I will. I'll book a flight right now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, please, right now.
I'll be there for Friday Kali Puja.
Okay, yes, please, yes. We have a job to do. Like
Thank you.
Jaima, thank you so much. And anyway, I have to restrain myself because I'm like so excited. I just want to like reminisce and tell you about all the really amazing things that happened. But like I just saw Ma, so I wanted to say that. Like that was so amazing. So and remind me to come to that in a bit because I want to make a point and reflect a little bit on the use of the voice and the way that energies are carried in the voice, and that requires that we have a little bit of a sense of linguistic mysticism also. So I want to make a few points about that. But Jaima, good to see you, Devi. Where were we? Yes. So Kali Puja has Ghata Sthapana, it has the yantra. So in the yantra, there are certain energies. But like coming back to the voice itself is a pulsating, throbbing, moving thing. And it's not a thing, it's like in between things, as it were. The voice has a kind of liminality to it, where it can take a form, meaning it can articulate words, or it can lapse into formlessness. Haven't you noticed? The voice can be just pure sound, or it can be a particular sound. So in a technical sense, when the voice is just making sound in general, that's called nada. And if you want to be really technical, there's a nada even beyond that expression of voice, which is silence. And that in that silence is contained all resonance. And when that resonance is given expression in the throat, in the lungs, in the voice, in the breath most of all, in the prana, it's Abhinav would use the language like he would say like fixing a possibility in prana. So anytime you sing, or anytime you express yourself, you've taken one expression of the infinitude of expressions and then you fixed it in prana, meaning you've established it, and therefore outwardly it comes out as the voice, it comes out as like the mechanics of singing. But the essence of it is of course establishing a possibility in prana. Okay, that aside though, that's of course a much more technical and much more refined way of speaking about this, but just like taking it more naively, the sound, the raw like vibration of the sound, let's say that's just nada. Nada meaning undifferentiated, general, homogeneous sound. And then when I give words to it, if I say like say Jaima, 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 now I've taken nada and I've articulated what is called bindu, which is a specific and definitive expression of nada. Notice that the voice can flow between both expressions. It can go into articulation, it can say Jaima, and it can convey meaning through definitive words that are definitively related to other words, which can be said in a definitive sequence. That's the use of language. But it can also just lapse into a formless movement of energy. Isn't that interesting? And when it comes to music, there's always a rhythm. All poetry has rhythm. Everything has rhythm. But with music, that rhythm can be a little bit constricting, where like words are concerned. So there's only so many words you can get into a particular meter. Like if you say 16 beats per meter, you can't say more words than those 16 beats will allow. Therefore, words and rhythm, they have a sort of relationship. But when you get rid of the words, then you're also free of the rhythm. So therefore, the rhythm becomes more fluid. In Indian music, it's called alap, which means just rubato in Western music, where it's like there's no beat, you just kind of flow and you do whatever you want. And often there's maybe tanpura at least, but you improvise and you're not bound by time. So just notice the flexibility of the voice to move between formlessness and form. It can move from general, samashti or nada, into vyashti, specific or bindu. It can articulate or it can just express. And notice it can move between temporality and atemporality. It can express something in terms of meter and rhythm, or it can just disobey and play and be fluid with meter and with rhythm. It can take a form, it can be formless, it can have rhythm, it can have no rhythm. It can also, and of course rhythm implies time, but it can also be atemporal. Like I could make noises and sounds and gestures, and they don't have to have a particular sequence that makes sense. Sanskrit is a bit like that, where if I mix the words up, the sentence will still read the same, because Sanskrit is not as temporal maybe as other forms of grammar. But like if I say the word I pot see, that would be grammatically wrong. I have to say I see a pot. So therefore the sequence of the words is important too. So words therefore can appear in a sequence, but sounds don't need words and sounds don't need a sequence. So in this rather esoteric understanding of language, we see the sound itself, the language itself, as the best possible metaphor for that which we call Kali. Because Kali is that energy who is at once formless. She's nada, she's void. And the void language of Mother Kali is what I want to emphasize today, actually. And I think that's possibly why the house is so dark. And now, when we finish Kali Puja, there's a process of dissolution or fading into the void that comes next, which I want to address. The Visarjan, it's called, the immersion, but I'll come to it. First, let's say this. There's this expression of Mother Kali, which is pure void, which is formless, impersonal, absolutely inscrutable. And that's the void mother that maybe Tibetan Buddhism emphasizes. Vyomeshwari is her name, void lady. And there's a wonderful story of Sri Ramakrishna practicing Advaita Vedanta with Totapuri. Remember, Totapuri is like a big, strong Punjabi monk, like hyper-masculine type, does not at all care for devotion. He thinks it's an affliction and weakness of the mind. He thinks that if you love God, then you're like somehow intellectually inferior, because you're taking your poetic symbols too seriously. There is no such thing as God, actually, according to Advaita Vedanta. God is like a tool that people need in order to be able to articulate a higher spirituality. According to Advaita Vedanta, just like according to Buddhism, it's not God, it's reality. And reality is not a being that you pray to. That's just a projection, it's a fantasy. Like we expect there to be some being that's like our parent. And so we project all of our own human weaknesses onto that being, and we say, oh, that being must want justice, it must be mad, it must be nice. Or even if we have very refined theologies, the very fact that we think that being is out there in the sky, that itself is laughable to someone of that disposition. You probably met the type, like a kind of secular atheist type who takes his science a bit too seriously. So you could argue there's a whole dimension of being, a more lunar dimension of being, a being that corresponds to symbols and to sound in a more general way as opposed to a more structured temporal way. There's a logic of the heart, if you will. There's a kind of reasoning that we do in the spirit. And Blaise Pascal, he has that beautiful, I think he had it stitched right into the inner seam of his jacket. It's like a quote or something. He said, the heart has its reasons, which reasons know not, or something in French, but I forget. So that idea that there's a kind of reasoning that Totapuri was not comfortable with. He was a jnani. He preferred logic, he preferred discernment, and he preferred austere meditation, where you sit literally naked. He was named Nangta, the naked one, by a fire, and meditate all night and all day, and that's all you do. And you wander about. You never stay in any one place for more than 3 days. So this is the ideal archetype of Shiva. You could say a person who just absolutely absorbed in the formless, is totally renounced, doesn't even wear clothes, and just wanders about free, roaming the world, independent, totally established in himself. So Totapuri, he had a kind of military power to him, a charisma, strength. So he would sit with his back perfectly straight. He was very stern, kind of dry and a little bit rigid, as it were. So Totapuri, he was there and he saw Sri Ramakrishna. He was very interested in teaching Sri Ramakrishna. So he asked Sri Ramakrishna to be his disciple. The first thing Sri Ramakrishna says to him, which is quite telling, is, let me go ask my mother first. That's strange, because Totapuri is like, why do you need to ask anybody? Shouldn't you just do whatever you want? Be free, you're your own person. You're not beholden to anybody. And Totapuri probably hasn't seen his mother in 40 years. He doesn't feel like he has a mother. Totapuri is the kind of person, and if you told him that his mother died, he wouldn't shed a tear. He'd be like, what mother? Whose mother? I am the self. Whose father he? Whose child he? Whose mother is he? The self relates to none, for it alone exists. The all is I, and the I is all in bliss. So whose mother then? And Shankara says this, right? He says in that very provocative verse, I have no mother, for I was never born. Pita naeva me naeva. I don't have a father even. I have no father, I have no mother. Na gurur, na bandur, na bandur, na mitram, gurur naiva shishas. What is it? I have no guru, I have no disciples, I have no friends, and I have no relations. Okay, edgelord king, relax. Hand me that black nail polish, enough.
Studying the sword, the way of the sword.
Yeah, while you all were worshipping ecstatically in the forest, I was studying the way of the sword or something. Can you make me a tea? Sorry, I forgot it. Thank you. There's this idea of intellectual rigor, which sometimes comes at the cost of a more poetic, more emotional, more irrational, dare I say it, way of relating to God. So God itself is a problem, and the idea of relating to God, what to say of that? So Sri Ramakrishna says to Totapuri, I have to go ask my mother. Totapuri is, I guess, charmed by this because it's his future disciple. You know, he knows that he'll soon grow out of this idea. But it's like cute, like this guy, he's a grown-ass man, but he feels like he has to go and ask his mom before he can start studying something. Totapuri really thought that Sri Ramakrishna meant his like human mother because with the intimacy with which he said, "Oh, let me just go ask my mom." Like who talks like that when it comes to God? You know, there's a kind of reservation that many of us have. The Sri Ramakrishna had no such reservation. He felt perfectly intimate with the Divine Mother. So he went and he asked his Divine Mother, and Kali said, "Yes, you should study this." And his guru, his like actual guru at the time, whose name was Bhairavi Brahmani, she said, "No, don't study this." It's a really interesting thing. His tantric guru, who taught him the like transgressive left-hand path of tantra, said to him, "Don't study Advaita Vedanta. It will fuck with your devotion." It more or less that's what she said. Okay, it's not exactly what she said, but more or less, she said, "Don't do it because it's going to interrupt your ability to relate to God. Because you're going to be told things that are contrary to your mood, to your bhava. So don't do it. Don't go and study with Totapuri." But Sri Ramakrishna had already received, as it were, a direct instruction from Kali to do it. So this itself is a very unique instance. Guru is saying something, Guru Vak is absolute. But then God is saying another thing. And Guru gets authority from God. So it's God's Vak that is Guru Vak. So like Sri Ramakrishna is hearing two different things, one from Kali and one from his Guru who supposedly represents Kali. This is the dilemma in the tradition. And you know what the danger here is? It's like often we mistake our own conditioning, our own like subconscious biases for the word of God. So we like say to somebody, "Oh, Kali told me this." My guru has a very funny story. Once a person showed up at the temple in the middle of the night, knocked on his door aggressively, and said, "Narayana told me that you are my guru and you have to initiate me now." And my guru Deva, he like opens the door and he said gingerly, "He never told me any such thing. Ask him to tell me first, then we'll talk." And then close the door on him. Which I think is so badass. But the idea of like, if God can tell you, then God can tell me. You know, and so until God tells me, I don't have to take what you tell me seriously. But importantly, how do I know that God told me? Did I dream that God came to me, or did God come to me in a dream? You see, there are two different things. Did I dream that God came to me, or did God come to me in my dream? And like, how do I tell between my own preference, my own instincts, my own conditioning, and divine will? And it's too convenient then to just pass off all of my own things as divine will. That's a kind of megalomania, kind of narcissism. So Sri Ramakrishna was obviously very safe from that because of all his years of intense spiritual practice. The argument here is that when one actually has access to Kali as a result of sadhana, true, intimate, direct access to Kali, it's a deep inner knowing that will have to express itself no matter what. So Sri Ramakrishna had access to that intuition that is rooted in God, not necessarily in conditioning. And it's through sadhana that we refine our discernment as to which one those two things are. And there's some tools, you know, they say like when you want something, there's often it's noisy. There's a lot of justification for it. You like have a lot of language for why this would be good or why this would be bad. But deep down inside, when there's the voice, that the still small voice, as they say in the Christian mystical tradition, that doesn't respond to reason. It doesn't make arguments. It just expresses itself clearly. Like, this is what I have to do. This is where I have to go. This is who I have to be with. Like all of these things just come clearly. And that's why you can imagine how stressful it must have been for the Christ's like evangelist. They're like, "What shall we say? Give us a syllabus. Like, let us know what you want us to say." And he's like, "Dude, chill, like go there, and then you'll know." And the idea that there's some still small voice, some inspiration that will tell you what to say, when to say it, that's threatening to the mind, which wants a little bit more control. So Sri Ramakrishna obviously was fully conversant with that inner guru. Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim. That knowledge, which is the bliss of Brahman, is verily Sarvadhi Shakshi Bhutam. It is the witness in all beings. But he also has a guru. And now in this case, there's a contradiction. Anyway, naturally, he defaults to the word of Kali and he goes off to Totapuri and he learns that sadhana, Advaita Vedanta, which seems to be a juxtaposition to the more devotional, more mystical tantras. So you could, I just like at this juncture, I could even say the tantras are kind of like the path of the moon, you know, if you will, because they use symbol and they use art and they use poetry and they speak to a different part of us, a part that we can develop if we engage in art, music, poetry. Refinement and aesthetic sense is important in Tantra. You must have a sense for beauty. You must like enjoy the way light interacts with shade. You must enjoy colors and smells, and you have to know what they then correspond to. Like the system of correspondences is not something that you can do with a chart. Like, you know, you can pull out a chart, you can say, this corresponds to that. But in the actual day-to-day life of ritual activity, it's more intuitive than that. Your book might say cinnamon corresponds to Lakshmi or something, but then in that moment, you might feel like clove is more appropriate because of your aesthetic sense and intuitive sense for like what smells go with what smells, what music goes with what music. A person who's very, very tuned to this will feel a kind of pain actually if somebody is playing drums like which are on a beat, or if somebody's in a raga that's not for the right time of day. Like if you sing the wrong raga at the wrong time, a person who is very aesthetically refined will just get a sense of like, ugh, like that's not the right sound. So that sense, that refinement, it comes through a lot of poetic thinking, imaginative thinking. It's based in devotion. A lot of Tantra has this idea of like relating to a deity, either transactionally or devotionally, but still there's a relationship. There's maybe a kind of implied duality. I would argue that the vast majority of Tantras seem to present as rather dualistic in that they're all about worshipping, and worshipping already presupposes the worshipper and the worshipped as being two separate things. Even if you later do a conceptual overlay of philosophy that shows you that they're actually the same, still the day-to-day activity of worship implies that duality. So Totapuri didn't vibe with that. He was very established in a different channel. You call it the Pingala, if you will, a masculine channel. Not to use those words to use them loosely, But in this channel, the emphasis is not on ritual, but on logic. The emphasis is not on the moon, but on the sun. Arguably, this is the path of reason, the path of austerity, the path of turning away from something. Whereas that, Tantra, is the path of turning towards something. We turn towards God with ecstasy. Whereas in Advaita Vedanta or yoga, arguably in the yogic path, we turn away from the world with clarity, with austerity, with will. So in Tantra, madness and a loss of control and possession, these things are considered desirable. Like we want to be possessed by Kali. We don't want to be in control. We don't want to be reasonable. We want to be mad. We say, Mother, make me mad with the devotion. We want to be intoxicated. All of these are like bhavas that come more naturally in the tantric world. Whereas in the Vedantic and yogic world, it seems like intoxication is not desirable. The Buddha expressly forbade the taking of intoxicants. Because here's why. It's not because they're inherently problematic. It's just that if you drink too much or if you smoke too much chillum or something, what will happen is that you won't be able to reason as well. You might like not be in control. And if you're not in control, that's a problem for the solar channel because control is very important for that energy. And so to be in control means not to be intoxicated. And intoxication is not just substance, it's of course emotion. If you've been in love, oh my God, like you could have the strongest drug in the world, it could never compare to the intoxication of love. It makes fools of us all, and thank God for it. So when we make a big deal of rationality, it's these moments, these irrational moments that remind us that life is really worth living outside of rationality. But that being said, those moments can also be really disturbing. They bring a lot of chaos into our life. Things change in a way that maybe is not desirable, and like outcomes come about. Like, oh my God, the life of passion is an animalistic life. And so then there's an enlightenment tradition of speaking out against the passions. They're just as intoxicating as drink and as drugs. So don't lose yourself to the ecstasy of falling in love or the passion of anger or the depths of despair. Because if you give in to the emotion, it'll possess you. It'll take over your mind and you won't be able to reason. And that's undesirable. So don't feel. Be stoic. And not just that, don't drink anything, don't smoke anything. Okay, actually, yogis are quite fond of ganja, but that we'll talk about that another time. But basically, don't be intoxicated, like don't swoon and don't lose your sense of reasoning. Always keep your back straight. Whereas the tantric might like kind of sit off to once. Like you can see like there's a kind of fluidity to the way a practitioner in tantra might express themselves. There's a certain solidity to the way a practitioner in yoga and Vedanta would compose themselves. So that's Sotapuri, and that's Bhairavi Brahmani. And we can see that Sri Ramakrishna is being parented here. He's got the ideal mother, like his mother is like the ideal priestess who is fully established in that like energy of the Ida Nadi. Vamachara, we say. Vama meaning here to thank you. Thank you. Vama here meaning the Ida, the left-hand channel, the symbolic imaginative mind. Whereas Totapuri is established in the Pingala Nadi. He's the perfect father. And again, the gender roles like maybe don't work so well here because sometimes Kali is depicted in one way, Shiva is depicted another. Sun and moon are used interchangeably. In some texts, it's not the sun at all, but the fire, which is contrasted to the moon. So it's not necessarily sun and moon, but there's some kind of duality, some kind of polarity maybe, which Devi and I were discussing could be like a magician, high priestess kind of thing. And the difference then is in what way that wisdom expresses itself. And in Totapuri, Sri Ramakrishna was drawn to that, like to mastering that too. So he went. And Totapuri was surprised with his aptitude, which I think will show you something. If you master one of the two nadis, the other one will come very quickly. So you only have to master the one that already comes naturally to you because the other one will already be included in that sadhana. But it doesn't mean you don't have to like seek out the sadhana. It's just that when you do, you'll retain it very quickly. The energy is flowing in a very clear way. So Sri Ramakrishna only took 3 days to master the Pingala Nadi, which is really crazy because it took Totapuri 40 years. Hmm. If Totapuri was in the cold, he wouldn't think to get a blanket. Isn't that interesting? Like if he's cold, if he's in the snow of the Himalayas, he would just sit there and deal with it, as it were, because he has that kind of austerity, that sense of endurance. But it took him a long time to get to the place where he really didn't mind if it was freezing. He really didn't mind if he hadn't eaten for days. He like literally lived naked in the woods, and all he would do is chop wood and light a fire and like live like that. Take a few alms, maybe. He was a very, very hard person. Hard in the sense of like stout and sturdy. Imagine how much training you require, mental training above all, to be the kind of person who's just not phased by life. So that's a requirement for yoga. Until you're really able to sit still, you can't do any serious meditation. But meditation, how many years of practice do you have to do to even be able to sit still? What to say of like focusing on something? So this is another thing. In our tradition, when we say meditation, more or less what we mean by that is concentration. And concentration is a somewhat masculine activity if we're going to abide by these ideas, because you have to keep the mind fixed. If it moves away, you have to bring it back. So if you look at the, and I know I'm going all over the place here, you'll have to forgive me. You have to. What can you do otherwise? Like, I can do what the fuck I want. Like, what can you do? But my problem is, I don't know what the fuck is going on. It's been I'm on a bender only. It's like for life. And I was just joking to somebody yesterday. We were coming home. The sun was rising. We had finished our homa, and we were just like reflecting on 6 nights of like just like it's all felt like one day. And as we were driving home, Yogeshwari was like, "Wow, we were Tarini, you are here, Jaima, Jaima, Jaima." Yes, I'm eating tiramisu in the kitchen with Tarini at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm like, "We're on a bender." And I'm with Yogeshwari, and she says to me, "It's like we're on a Kali bender." And I said, "That's just like a regular bender." It's just a regular bender. Like you just say Jai Ma more, but it's I'm kidding. Not really. But now the idea of like Pingala, it's the idea of concentration. Notice this. If Shiva is associated with the Pingala, then in his Sahasranama, is it any surprise that one of the first um names for Shiva is like Sthireshwara? Sthira, Sthaneshwara. These are all names for Shiva, and they're very much like the English word stop or stand or stay. The sta sound, stambini, implies firmness. Shiva, you could argue, is an immovable rock. Whereas Kali, you could say, is an unstoppable force. So with Kali Sahasranam, of course, you also get those names, Tira, etc. But I think the emphasis is more on Chanchala. That's another word I love for Kali. Chanchala means fickle. And like I've told you this before, but in Indian aesthetics, it's like a mark of beauty. Like what would make someone beautiful if, from the heteronormative, like gendered point of view, a woman is beautiful if she's fickle and emotional and arguably hysterical. It's funny because the very things that women might be demonized for in a more patriarchal society, in the Indian aesthetic sense, she is celebrated for. So by the way, if a woman is like unable to make a decision, that's considered extremely attractive because that's the quality of chanchala, of fickleness. Like so Katy Perry is your yes and your no. Like she's talking about this guy, but like that quality itself. Your yes and your no, you're in and you're out, you're up and you're down, you're wrong when it's right, you're black when it's white. Like we fight, we break up, we kiss, we make up. Like what the fuck is going on here? Like that quality of keeping someone guessing, keeping them on their toes, like one moment being relaxed and the next moment screaming, like starting a screaming match in the kitchen. Like that quality is a good thing when it comes to Indian aesthetics describing women. So and not only that, Indian aesthetics, I would argue, are pretty radical when it comes to even morals and ethics like that. Like you can see that when a woman like is not loyal to her male spouse, that's actually a feminine trait that's celebrated. It's like the divine um like a sensuality idea of like because she's free and uninhibited. But Shiva never cheats on Parvati. Like Shiva will never like have a non-monogamous situation. But like weirdly enough, he likes when Parvati does or Parvati does, and like, it gets complicated. Obviously, the Puranas have all sorts of offshoots, and they sometimes have political agendas behind them. Some more apologetic and some more like anarchic. But yeah, maybe perhaps. But like, yeah, actually, really, that Purusha. But now the point here is that, like, if you were to simplify, you would say then Shiva, Pingala is Sthira, and the practice of meditation is Sthira. Notice its emphasis is on firmness and steadiness. Whereas in Kali Puja or in Shakti Sadhana, there is that. That's a big part of it. But a lot of it is also dynamic. It's about moving and dancing and singing, and there's a sort of ecstasy to it, which is a pulse and a throb. And so there you're invited to dance, you're invited to sing, you're invited to chant and speak and move. In the world of devotion, you go from one place to another. You go from this place where mother did X, and you go from that place where mother did Y, and then you're dynamism. Whereas in yoga, you stay in one place. You stay in one place, you keep your mind in one place. So notice to learn that, Sri Ramakrishna had to go to this like father figure, as it were, Totapuri. So he went to Totapuri and he learned from Totapuri this austere, dare I say, masculine aloofness. And then with that, he was able to enter into deep meditation, but he did it really quickly. Like, I just want to make a point about that because we often think that these are diametrically opposed to one another. They're not. They're the same energy looked at in two different ways. So if you enter deeply into any one, you'll naturally have access to the other. Do you see the point we're making here? I think is subtle. Like we're used to thinking of these two as being two different things and sometimes mutually exclusive things. And if we get one, we might never have to get the other. Or if we get one, it might impair us in trying to get the other. But what Sri Ramakrishna is demonstrating in this episode is that by mastering Vamachara, by mastering the devotional, sentimental, like path of the moon, it made him especially capable for the Pingalachara, the path of the sun, Dakshinachara, the path of rigor and discipline and aloofness and austerity. So it's a remarkable fact, I think, of this episode. Anyway, so he does this after 3 days. It took Totapuri 40 years to get this level of firmness in meditation. After 3 days, Sri Ramakrishna enters into samadhi. But then something very peculiar happens here. He sees an image of Mother Kali appearing in his mind, and for him, it's no image. It's a direct experience of Mother Kali. And when Mother Kali appears, he feels stuck. Totapuri is inviting him into the formless absolute, but he can't quite get there because of Mother Kali, as it were. So now Mother Kali, his beloved Mother Kali, has become an obstacle to his jnana sadhana. What was his support in bhakti sadhana is now becoming a hindrance in his jnana sadhana. So then his claim is that he took the sword of knowledge. Now, you guys, another point I want to make here, which I think is really profound and really important. When Sri Ramakrishna experienced Mother Kali first as a bhakta, it was in the context of performing Bali on himself. Bali is a practice within the tradition of Kali where we offer an animal to God. So often a goat, sometimes a chicken. It could be, buffalo is one of the main sacrifices, the bigger sacrifice in some of the bigger ceremonies. But, it could be a vegetable. So Bali is when you kill something. And by the way, a vegetable is a life. So people talk about vegetarian Bali. It's also problematic to cut a vegetable, as the Jains would argue. So it's the act of moving prana from one body back to Ma, which of course, you can argue about and debate about all you want, but that's not what we're going to do now. Just note this, that in the tradition of worshipping Kali, often a goat is being offered to Kali. And if you have problems with that, please take it up with Kali. I have people who are like often very naturally and rightly so disgusted by some of the things that are involved in Kali Puja. And I'm like, that sounds like a you problem, and be careful because you're in a Kali temple right now. And you're saying to somebody that the food that she likes to eat is somehow bad and disgusting. Imagine going into somebody's house and you're served a meal, and then you're like, oh, this is bad food. This is disgusting. I can't believe that you eat this. And you guys live like this? This is terrible. That's so culturally insensitive. And in some cases, if you go into like a household and you say these things, they might be so offended that it will probably kill you. It's happened. It's happened before. So we are sensitive around being respectful because if you're in somebody's house, then we do as the Romans, as they say, right? So like, that's the idea. Like Kali, her world involves some of these macabre elements like Bali. Now, naturally, then in a Kali temple where goats are being offered to Mother Kali, there's going to be a sword, a khadga, that's specifically used for that Bali. But not only is it used for the Bali, it itself is a very important symbol for worship and for contemplation. So when Mother is worshipped, we often want on the altar some kind of demonstration of her violence or of her bloodlust. She's Bali Priya or Rudira Priya. And therefore, we have the khadga, which is used in the goat slaughter. We have it on the altar. It's usually mounted either behind Mother Kali or it's like on the altar or it's like next to her or something. It's available for seeing. It's not put away in some corner because it's not a thing that is done in the dark behind closed doors. It's a thing that's supposed to be done as a spectacle for the benefit of that community. It's a very interesting kind of idea of open violence, open elements that are disturbing. And that's exactly what the Catholic context does too, because it puts one of the most disturbing images of the tradition out in the public in front of everyone to see. So when you come to church in the morning with your children, you look up and you're like, there's a guy getting tortured. What do you want to do Sunday morning? Oh, let's go look at an image of a guy getting tortured and then we'll get pancakes. Like it's like I can eat pancakes after having just looked at one of the worst, most excruciating forms of Roman torture. It's like kind of interesting. Same thing. We were looking at the sword as we perform the worship. And that sword, that very sword, is not ceremonial only. It's used. That's another element of it. That sword is not merely ceremonial, it's used. But it's used on goats. But the goat is both the means and ends. As an ends, we give goats because Mother Kali likes goats. She's like a chupacabra or something. One of these days, I'm just gonna like name a Kali Murti like Chupacabra or something because she likes goats. She likes to suck on blood. And Tarani's like, what the fuck? Like, we lost the plot. Chupacabra, like, fuck. Like, those two words have never been said, and I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm really not. Chupacabra. So this idea of mother likes goats, so we give her goats. That's one thing. But also, if you want to like put on some idea on top of that, like to understand why it is that we do that, you could say, yeah. Pretty south. Mother is southwestern, and that has significance in the yantra also, actually. Okay, now this idea of okay, she likes Bali, she likes goats, so we do it. But also we do it because it's spiritually productive. So whatever we might think of it, like it seems in the tradition, there's a corroborated sense that this works. It does help people. Um, and I love Usha Ma's story here because she, of course, coming into this tradition, seeing that, that's one of the hardest things to see. And it's only in the recent months that I've felt inspired at all to like put this in front of the general public because it's unless you're in India, it's not something that's put in front of the general public. But what I realize is the temple worship of Mother Kali, which is somewhat more mainstream now than it's ever been before, has no qualms about being very public about its tradition. So I thought maybe even in our lectures on Mother Kali, like a temple of Kali, we should do our balis out in the open. You know what I mean? So anyway, and to put it this way, Usha, of course, when she saw this, having never seen it before, was scared by it, or at least she had this sense of reservation because we don't live in a world where animals are sacrificed to God, and that seems as somewhat uncouth. We live in a world where animals are silently killed in horrible ways in some far corner, and then we eat them and we don't even remember that they're animals. Like that, we're in a much more civilized world, you guys. Like we're in a world where animals are like the genocide of animals is just effective. There's record keeping, there's like all sorts of things that allow the animals to be slowly killed. And more importantly, there's a way to make sure that you don't think that you've killed anybody because you don't call it a cow, you call it beef. You don't call it chicken, you call it poultry. It's like when you're eating the McDonald's burger, like you don't have to like hold a knife and kill something. I mean, how civilized. Anyway, so in this context, if you're in the jungle and you have to like kill your own food, you kill it before God. You drag the animal before God, whimpering and screaming, and you see yourself in the animal, you pray to the animal, you wash its feet, you anoint it, you prepare it in every possible way. Like you worship the animal for days and days and days and days and develop this relationship with the animal. You fall in love with the animal. It's your pet and then you kill it and eat it. My mother told me actually one of the traumas of her life was eating her pet goat. Like it was one of the things like she had this goat that she loved, and as a kid, she didn't really understand that it was going to be sacrificed and eaten. So you should like ask her, like you can still see that there's a touch of sadness. She's like in her 50s, 60s, she's in her 60s now, but still she speaks of this story as if it was yesterday, where she was like having goat curry, and then she realized this is that goat that just yesterday she was like playing in the fields with. It's like that. You like fall in love with the goat, I think, and you put garlands around it, and you're not, and then you come and cut the goat's head off. And so Usha was there and she saw all of this. It was disturbing. And when the guy came out with the sword, he wiped the blood off the sword. And interestingly, of all the people there, he chose to wipe it on Usha's forehead. And she said she went into an ecstasy. Now, does that mean she's going to participate in Bali? No. She herself told me that. She's like, yeah, I'm still a vegetarian. Her diet is just bread and cheese. There are a few things she can eat because she's also no onions, no garlic. She's very sattvic. In any case, she's not going to start eating meat. She's not going to start killing animals. She's not going to participate in the tradition. That's what she said to me. But she did say that she stopped judging it. All of her hang-ups vanished when she actually felt what happened when the blood was smeared across her forehead, and then she went to, in her words, I was flying. So that is not a ceremonial piece. It's used. It's used for the slaughter of goats, and then the blood is wiped off and distributed, and people worship the sword, and then it's placed back on the altar. So back to the narrative. Sri Ramakrishna is in the shrine, and he's looking at that sword, which is an important part of Kālī Sādhana. It's part of the temple traditions, and that sword is for sacrifice. But arguably, of all the things that you could sacrifice to Kali, the thing that she wants most, above all, as the texts tend to tell us, is blood and heads, but specifically human heads. Which arguably the Mahisha, the buffalo, or the Chaga can at best represent. And if you've seen this, they put a light, a ghee lamp, inside the head of the goat. So the lamp burns and you're handing a head with fire in it to the goddess. And there's all sorts of symbolic dimensions to that. But it's evocative. When you see a head on a plate handed to God, it's something about that is really evocative. Beyond just the Shakespearean goth sense of like profundity, you do feel like disturbed, and that the act of beheading seems to have a strong subconscious effect. But that is a symbol, arguably, for my own head. I'm supposed to offer my own head to Kali, and people have. Many people have offered their own head in the worship of Mother Kali. So what Sri Ramakrishna does, it's so interesting. A lot of us think it's like this irrational, like just sentimentality, becomes suicidal. I think it's not just mere suicidal ideation. It, in my opinion, is a very intuitive expression of a lineage-based tradition. Bali, and Bali of a human. And he's the one, he's going to give himself to Kali. So he takes the dagger and he's about to perform his own Bali. Now, buyer be warned, is not to be tried at home, like it's the kind of thing, it's like, don't think that mother is somehow going to appear and catch the sword as she did for Sri Ramakrishna. She might just watch. And she might watch again and again and again, life after life after life, until she's like, okay, yeah, whatever. I think he's for sure. We think that it's easy to win Kali. Like I just have to like make a show of killing myself, and then she'll come and stop me because she's so soft and nice. For her, I'm not killing myself. For her, I'm just like destroying my clothes. It's not. She doesn't freak out about it the way that we do because of our limited ideas of life and death. But with Sri Ramakrishna, as he was about to cut his own head off, like at least slit his throat to give the blood to Kali. Right as he was about to do that, he had this vision of Mother Kali. So the point I want to make now is this. Sri Ramakrishna performs a Bali of himself to be able to experience Kali in the bhakti context. Do you see? To experience God, you must first kill yourself. Does that make sense? That's the Bali that's required. The cost for the vision of God is your head. And there's another parallel story here where Swami Premananda, who's one of the most ecstatic lovers of God in the Ramakrishna religion, yeah, he whosoever shall lose his life shall find it. That's the Christ teaching. And it's a teaching on Bali. You have to lay down your life to like, and he who shall find his life shall lose it. So if you're precious about your life, you'll never gain the life eternal. You'll be confined to the limited life.
See God as well.
Yeah, thou canst not see the face of God and live. Exactly. It's funny because it sounds like it's like the backward causality. There's like what do you got, like a cart before the horse. First I see God, then I die. No, 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 no. Only a dead man can see God. So it's about a post-mortem salvation. There's something to it. Like I must die first. But the death is not necessarily the death of the body. So when the body dies, the idea that automatically means I'm going to see God is a very limited view. Because when the body dies, I don't die. I continue, I persist, and I enter into new experiences with new bodies. So I must actually myself die. And maybe on this note, there's just so much complexity here. But on this note, you'll see in the Bhuta Shuddhi, we don't say Deha Sharira Shoshaya Shoshaya Swaha. When we invoke fire to burn the body, we don't ask the fire to burn the physical body. When we invoke wind to dry up the body so that it can be burnt, we don't invite it to dry up the physical body. What are those mantras? The Bhuta Shuddhi mantras. What do they actually say? Does anybody recall them? In the Bhuta Shuddhi section of the puja, like do you recall what those mantras say? Om Bhuta Shrigata Chiraha Shumnapatena Jiva Shivam Paramashiva Pade Yojayami Swaha. The next mantra is pop quiz. Om. How do you dry up the body?
Oh, it's a Jwala.
That's it. Jwala, Jwala. But here's like a.
Jwala. Mo Shringatum.
Yeah, that's the next mantra. Yeah, like there's this idea of light up, light up. But before that, there's this Om Yam. Linga Sharira Shoshaya Shoshaya. So Shoshaya means dry up. Shoshaya, Shoshaya, Swaha. Like so many of the tantric words are like do this, do this. Like we're trying to get energy to go in a certain direction, and sometimes we're kind of direct and fierce about it. So we're saying, oh air, yam, I control you with the element with the bija mantra yam. Dry up, dry up. But what kind of body are you trying to dry up? This is important. You're drying up the linga sharira. Om Yam Linga Sharira Shosha Shosha Swaha. Linga Sharira is not your physical body, it's your causal body. It's what you are in deep sleep, without any dreams, without any physical experience. Karana Shar, causal body. So you're asking air to dry up your causal body. What a profound metaphor for the drying up of karmas. Like when karmas are juicy, that's when they fruit. But if you're dried up inside, like a dry thing won't sprout. And a dry thing can be burned. So in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, they use this metaphor of like cooked seeds a lot, dried seeds. The causal body contains seeds. It's just a field, a black soil in which seeds are there. And they've been planted, of course, over the course of innumerable lives in which these seeds have been sown. He whosoever shall sow shall reap. And what is that? You've sown the seeds. Sorry, you guys, I'm sorry I'm so Christian like now. It's like I blame Rakta Rupini, but also I blame Kali because the more I worship Kali, the more Catholic I become. The more I understand Jesus and Mary, and the more obsessed I become with the crucifix and with that moment of Ilahi, Ilahi, Lama Sabachthani. It's like the same religion to
You
me,
become Eastern Orthodox too.
without a doubt. Jean is like the sweetest devotee of God, expressing the poverty of spirit, expressing like deep virtuous like sense of lack of virtue. And so I come out into the living room today, and he's like obviously reading some Eastern Orthodox text. I'm like, damn, past lives are a thing. You know? But like that's what happens if Kali, Jesus is a priest of Kali. He teaches Kali. What he's teaching is what I'm talking about is Kali. Only in his context he spoke about it differently. It's one to one. But this idea of like he whosoever shall sow shall reap, that concept of the sowing seed metaphor is important. You put it in the soil, you don't see it. That's the thing. It's like hidden in the soil. And then it suddenly sprouts and becomes something else. Similarly, there are these instincts within us that we don't ever see. It's behind the conscious mind. And then suddenly they bloom into some action or some word or at least some thought or some emotion. So those seeds are in the causal body and they must be dried up. As long as they stay wet and juicy, they will always have the potential for, sprouting. So the first thing you do is you dry up the causal body. Om Yam Linga Sharira Shosha Shosha Swa. Now it's dry. Having dried it up though is not good enough because if you dry it up, there's always the chance that it might get wet again. If it rains, then it get wet and then it might sprout. So if you burn it, the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali argues, that's the only way the karma will be gone. Now that thing cannot sprout anymore. It's burned. So you can burn it in two ways. You can either do yoga or you can do the karma. Because by the way, if you do the karma, you'll get burned. And sooner or later, life will burn you from that. So that burning itself is how you burn out the samskaras. If you just do it whatever the fuck you want, indulge yourself, go ham, like have at it, like go off, queen. Like if you just do that, that's also yoga because you'll burn off all these samskaras by the fires and trials of your life. So having said all of that, we have two things. Yam, linga sharira shoshaya shoshaya. Ram, sukshma sharira, daha daha, svaha. Chit pingala, hana hana, daha daha. Like when we do the homa, we do this mudra. It's called a Jwalini mudra. And with Jwalini mudra, we invite the fire to come. So we say Chit pingala, hana, daha daha. Hana hana daha daha. We say the pacha pacha. We're saying all these words. I mean, like light up, burn, burn, become red, become red. And daha daha means burn, burn. So we want to burn the dried up body. But look, at no point have we used the mantra Deha Sharira. It's always Linga Sharira, Sukshma Sharira. There's a deep secret here. It's not desirable to burn up the physical body. Like suicide is really idiotic because it doesn't address the problem at all. It only makes it worse. And that's why religions are so harsh on suicide, is because it's got the right idea just with the worst possible execution. It's just like, haha, you want to kill yourself, cute, you're an idiot. You were right to try to kill yourself. You're absolutely right. No one should talk you out of your suicidal ideation because it's a veiled moksha instinct, a desire for transcendence. It's just that you need to be talked out of, as it were, a false understanding of how to go about that. Like that's a misdirected expression. And for Kali, for Bhairava, like it's nothing to them. But for us, it's a real setback, And so therefore, it's not the physical body that we're burning. There's another story here where a monk at his Diksha day thought that he had wisdom and he thought, I am not the body, so let me put it into the fire. He was about to jump into the fire and say Swaha when his guru calmly started laughing at him. The guru just watching him, started laughing at him. Guru yoga, a lot of it just used to be two guys at a fire, right? The guru's looking at him, laughing at him, and he's like offended. He said, hey, you're laughing at me? I'm about to self-immolate. It's the moment of my martyrdom. I'm about to become a saint, and you're laughing? You should be like, oh my God, God is real. And he said, yes, I'm laughing because you're an idiot. You offer into the fire the things that are yours to give, but the body is not yours. How can you offer what was never yours? And then he says, "Prakityaiva cha karmani kriyanani sarvasha." Are you digesting your own food? Are you breathing your own air? Etc. So a teaching comes to show Prakityaiva cha karmani kriyanani sarvasha. The body is just nature. It's not your body. It's nothing to do with you. It's just something you're experiencing. So how then can you kill it and offer it? And how then can you think anything you do on the level of the body will necessarily result in liberation? Because you'll just, scrub your clothes all day, how would that necessarily improve your character? It could. Could learn a lot from doing that, but if you were obstinate and refused to learn and just scrubbed your clothes, clean clothes don't a good character make or something. So then you go and you do all these spiritual practices, but the mantra is Linga Sharira, and of course the Linga Sharira, and then the next one is the Sukshma Sharira. So dry up my causal body, burn up my subtle body. Basically, let me die before I die. Let me die inwardly, and then thou canst not look upon God and live. You must be dead first. Only dead people can see God. Yeah. Maybe that's one reason why we like to hang out in the smashan a lot. Because like we're cosplaying, we're role playing dead people, or like we wear like the basma all over us to like feel like we're ghosts. Like and then we identify as ghosts, bhutas and something like that because we want to be dead. So only the dead can see. Only the dead are really alive, as it were. So there's this whole like kind of cosplaying kind of motif and theater that comes with this sadhana. But you can see where it's coming from. This desire in bhuta shuddhi, it's expressed, but this philosophical, very subtle, very refined philosophical idea of surrendering all that you think that you are as a sacrifice to Kali. So that you have to do in order to see God. So the first point I want to make with regards to this Totapuri, not the first point, I've already made quite a few, but the thing to focus on now is this idea that to see God, you must kill yourself. That's the price. So coming back to Swami Premananda, he was one of the most ecstatic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and necessarily his name was very fitting, Premananda, the one who delights in Prema, Radha Rani's love for Krishna. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna described this man, Premananda Baburam Maharaj, as an avatara angsha of Radharani. He's like a portion of Radha in this world. So he was an ecstatic bhakta type. But he mainly taught karma yoga. It's very interesting. He mainly taught Swami Vivekananda's karma yoga. So he would get heckled. When he was giving lectures, people would heckle him. Speak to us of love. Tell us of devotion. Like give us something about bhakti. He refused to talk about bhakti. Because what gets passed off as bhakti is just no, it's not the thing. It's a counterfeit bhakti, which can be bought and sold. Bhakti, a lot of it is just pretense. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. May all beings be. You've been to church. You know how like phony it all is. Like you stepped away from all of that because you felt the hypocrisy of religion. So bhaktas suck. Like they all think that they love God, having never killed themselves. And so you have living people worshiping God. It's so stupid because it looks stupid. It sounds stupid. It's like you don't know what you're saying. You don't mean what you're saying. Like, how do you even know? Like, fuck all that. Like you get the sense of aversion for the showiness and hypocrisy of religion. So you can see that Premananda was not interested in pandering to the religious sensationalism of bhaktas. So he didn't want to speak of bhakti lest he cheapen it. So he would only speak of karma yoga, etc., etc. And one day he just snapped. Someone kept heckling him about this whole prema business, and he just snapped. And he turned around and he said, "Oh yeah, you want prema? Hear the story. Once a vendor was walking down a street and he was advertising his wares. Prema, come get your prema. Like that, like how the hawker and vendor might do. And people all rush to the streets because they all want prema. Everybody wants prema. So they rush out to the streets. They're like, I'll take prema. I'll take prema. I'll have one, sir. I will take one too. I'll take one for my family. But only one person was wise enough to ask, what's the price? Everybody thought they would get it for free. Now, hence my rant. Like, it seems a lot like now we don't think that things have a price. Everything has a price. And God, the highest price of them all, because God is priceless. It's a price that actually we can't afford. And that is the killing of ourselves, of the inner self. So this person asked, so what's the price? And the hawker turned on him and said, your head. And that was the end of Premananda's story. He was like, now don't talk to me about bhakti. Also, I think he was making another point that's important to me. I don't really like to talk about God. Yeah, it sounds kind of ironic to say, but I don't like to talk as a bhakta. I abhor it actually. This kind of like sentimental language. Oh my God, I love Kali. Like, that's between me and her. Why the fuck I have to say it to you? But not only that, I cheapen it by speaking of it because it's not the kind of thing that can be put to logic. To tell you that I love Kali, I will not use language. I rather sing, I rather wave lamps, I rather live the love. But to speak of love, oh my God, it's to imply that the aspect of the Vama can be understood in the Pingala. It's a horrific understanding of how energy should flow. If energy is not flowing in the Vama, then necessarily you'll make this mistake of wanting to speak in logical terms, in reasonable terms, of things that the mind knows not. The mind does not know about God. So mark my words, I'm an atheist. I'm speaking to you now, I'm an atheist. Because I know that I, as my mind, as my conscious reasoning intellect, cannot make any claims of God. I can only make claims on those aspects of my personality which I'm choosing to deify to justify my own bad behavior. I hate the word God. It makes people into not only sentimental fools, but righteous assholes. It gives them the authority, which, comes from their religions and their books, to do all sorts of things. So I don't believe in God. I dare not say God, because who knows anything about God? You can know God, just not through these words and this mind. So therefore, don't speak about things in the daytime that should be spoken of at night, as it were. So God is to be spoken of at night. We make love in the night, but in private. And so that being said, Premananda was a true lover of God. He didn't want to talk about God or love. You can't talk about God. You can't talk about love. How ridiculous to talk about God or love. You can only live love. You can only be God and live love. You can't talk about God or live love. That being said, anyway, so that being said, Premananda gave this story, and notice there's one more piece here. Yeah, exactly. This is one more piece, a very, very important piece. He gave his head. What's the price? My head, you could say it's my ego, but you could also say it's my reason. When you say someone has lost their head, you don't mean they've transcended their ego and had an ego death. You mean they're not in their right mind anymore. Look what we said, their right mind. Isn't that interesting? Like they're in their left mind, you guys. Like if someone is not in their right mind, that's considered losing your head. Because you're still in a kind of mind. Make no mistake, there's another kind of head. It's like when you're giving God head, that's another kind of, okay. It's like, it's different from being in your right state of mind, your right mind. It's like a different kind of vibe. And it's true and it's real. So God cannot be known. This is a fact. God cannot be known. She can be more than known, though, because there's something more intimate, you could argue. Or different. I don't have to say more intimate, just different. So when Premananda said the cost is your head, he meant it maybe in both senses. You have to give up your sense of self, your sense of separate self. You have to lose yourself in the act of worshiping God, which is the kind of be all end all of bhakti practice. And he also means that you should engage with your practice in such a way that you stop caring so much about what the mind thinks and you start reasoning in a different way. So entering a different mode of worship, a different mode of reasoning is why this Kali Puja can be so helpful. Now, that's Sri Ramakrishna's expression, arguably, when he takes the sword to his head. He's paying the price that Premananda stated for the vision of God. So if you want to have, we call Brahma Darshana or Brahma Jnana, which is the experience of God as the absolute, which you could say is Kali Darshana, Ishvara Labh, or whatever. Like if you want to attain God in this way, you have to give up your own head. You have to become absolutely selfless, absolutely like humble, sit in the lowliest of places, like all of that stuff. Like blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. But notice the meekness, the humbleness, the humility, it's not in relation to the world. It's in relation to God. It's only before God that Sri Ramakrishna did this. So he's about to cut his own head. And just as he's about to do it, he has his vision of God as formless splendor and all that. He says, Ma, Ma, Ma. So he sees God. Now, having seen God through the Vama, I'm not going to say Vamachara in this sense, but like through the ritualistic practices of Tantra, he then goes on to practice Advaita Vedanta. So he's already had an experience of God. Now, having seen God in this way, he wants to practice the other path too, arguably to have a fuller realization of God. So he goes and he practices Advaita Vedanta, and now the very realization that he had in the Vama Marga is inhibiting him in this marga, in the Pingala Nadi. It's just the way that energy flows. So now here he's in the Pingala Nadi and he's starting to like meditate and he's about to get into the formless aspect. But here, one more barrier. It's the form, the subtle sense of duality, which is the sense of saying ma, ma, ma. You can't quite say me, or actually it's not me, it's beyond I and me. But you can't do it until you give up your idea of yourself as the worshipper. And the only way to give up that idea is to give up the worshipped. So the price for is the second point I want to make, second dramatic point. The first one was the price for seeing God is you have to kill yourself. If you want to see God, you have to kill yourself. But what if you want to see yourself? You have to kill God. So that's why the Buddhist emphasis on if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him, like that idea. So you meet God. If there is God, you have to kill your God. You have to dethrone God. So what Sri Ramakrishna does is he takes the same sword. This is so interesting, but now it's internal. The external Bali sword, which you use for the animal, he then used for his ego, and then he used on God. Now it's 3 strokes to death because it's 3 knots. Do you see? So the sword must strike thrice. First at your paśutva. So you have to kill goats. Of course, your own animality is what's being killed. That's the first strike. Then you become a bhakta, actually, because once that is open, Your heart will open and you will love God. You'll be a true bhakta, which means it's just God, 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 God. It's like everything. It's like people say they're bhaktas, but they have hobbies. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't get it. I don't get how could anything be at all interesting outside of God? Because arguably only because the energy is not flowing in that center. So Sri Ramakrishna showed us that we are playing at being a bhakta because we're not intense the way that he was, the way that Swamiji was, the way that Holy Mother was. And that intensity is not a practice, it's an effect of practice, a state. It's a external depiction of how energy flows when it gets to the heart. So here in this knot, we love God and we're a bhakta, but we're kind of stuck because the energy can't flow past the next knot, which is where you feel a sense of separation. So the third strike is the final kill. And that's when you kill God. So first you kill the external world, then the ego, and then finally God. Notice this is like just a way of describing the movement of Kundalini Shakti through the three knots. Yes. The esoteric idea, I think, like these correspondences and how different parts of the tradition all like a fractal reflect one another. So having gotten to this point, Sri Ramakrishna takes that same sword and now he uses it on God. So he says, I cut Mother Kali in half. Can you do it? Like, can you kill the one that you love so much? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because you've already practiced it. You practice with a goat. We have to start small, you guys. You know, I can't kill myself yet, and I can't kill God yet, but I can kill a goat that I love. I can kill my pet. So I practice. We get a goat. We love that goat. Now, right? I'm going to say this later. We'll talk about we get a goat, we wash the goat's feet, we give the goat malas, and then you love the goat, and then now you take the sword and you kill that thing which you love. Boss, you passed like the first test, as it were. Now, the next thing you love even more is yourself. Sometimes it's sad. You kill the goat because you love yourself. You love yourself so much you want to eat the goat curry. There's no problem with that. It's okay to love yourself. But now it's time to kill the self. And then you've practiced with the goats. You like know how to wield a knife now. It's so funny, you know. People want to worship God who is a killer, and they are not killers. I'm sorry, I'm becoming a bit bloodthirsty. Something is coming, and I do apologize for the disturbing things I'm going to say next. Doesn't God kill people? Isn't she not time? If she's time, time is a devourer. What kind of person thinks that he will ever get an audience with the queen of the dacoits, who is themselves not a dacoit? How will you get God if you're not a criminal? How will you get God if you're not evil? Like, you're all so good and so rule following and so gentle and so kind. That's well and good, but what can we know then, we who are good, of that which is beyond good? So, in one sense, we have to be a killer to worship the killer. We have to learn to kill. What a terrible thing to say. And this isn't inciting people to violence. It's not prescriptive. It's descriptive. I'm not telling you to do something, by the way. I'm telling you what we do, what Kali worshippers do. It's different. I'm describing a tradition and a practice. I'm trying to represent a lineage. I'm not prescribing anything for you because it's not for everyone. But like, here's the logic of it anyway. We kill to practice adharma, I would say. And you could even argue like it's a lot of it has to do with, you know, dharmic overcoding. You could say, oh, it's good because you're actually sending the animal to God. I'm not sure about that. No, you can't be sure about that actually. And even if you have faith in that, the actual act is quite difficult because in that moment you have the sense of like, what if it's not true? Then I'm just going to be committing an act of wanton violence. And how could I, a good person, do that? How could I, a vegetarian, engage in such an activity? Good, that must be killed, but the good person must be killed, you know, arguably. Then the person must be killed. But the first killing is a practice in killing. Once you get good at killing animals and stuff, then you become a bit closer to God. God is killer. But then the next person you have to kill is yourself. And the suicide of the body is like not it. It's such a cheap way of doing this because the body just is not, it's too peripheral to be actually meaningful as a sacrifice. It's the heart, it's the jiva that needs to be killed. That's the one that keeps reincarnating from body after body. So there's no solution in killing the body. Yeah, true, true, true. And then what happens next is the second stroke comes because we've practiced on the goat. Now we know how to practice on ourselves, something a little more dear to us, but don't worry, we know what it is to kill that which we love. So then we kill ourselves. You know, that's why violent people, I think, it can still help them, but it won't help them quite as much as gentle people because it's learning to kill something that you love, I think, that is the art. Not necessarily. I can make the same argument for something that you hate. If you learn to hate yourself, that's also good as you can kill it. Christian strategy, you could say. Like just like really hate yourself so much till you kill it. It's pretty radical, you know, like when you read these texts, I'm a filthy sinner. I'm a filthy sinner. I am so debased. Like Sri Ramakrishna didn't like it at all. So to toe the party line, I should say that like also like it's like we shouldn't think of ourselves as that. But this weekend, I'm starting to understand. I feel the bhav a little bit of kind of like I just want to kill, and I can kill in two ways. I can kill out of love, or I can kill out of hate. So which one do I want? Like if I go to war and the whole vibe of like war and stuff like that, it's like go to war with the self, go to spiritual battle, see how diabolical it is, how weak and how limited it is. That's actually empowering because it's giving you this virya, this vigor. And what does it do? It takes Evagrius out into the desert. So he stands like shivering in a cold well at 3 in the morning, like every single night, in order to kill off the self. Like that's not a weak person doesn't do that. A person who actually thinks he is a sinner does not have the vigor to perform the tapasya of the Christians. And that's what I love about the Eastern Orthodox people, right? Like they're like tapasvis. Like they do austerity. Where do they get that vigor? Look, most people say I'm a filthy sinner, and as a result of that, they're incapacitated when it comes to living in the world. They don't have a strong sense of self. They can't do anything in the world. But these people must have had such a developed sense of self that they were able to say that I am a filthy sinner, and because of that, I must go and stand in a well all night until I absolve myself of this idea of who I think I am. I respect it a lot, actually. And the language of the Eastern Orthodox regarding their prayer ropes, their swords, and you use your swords and you fight demons, and like it's a desert culture of like Gnostic Zoroastrian warfare. Like the demiurge, you fight him, and like a lot of these like the legions of Lucifer, and then your Mikael is your general, and like let's fight. Like it's a bhava, and it's helpful. I think it works. That's why. Look at the Catholic tradition. Look at the Eastern Orthodox tradition. Haven't they produced a lot of saints? Where are the saints of the Protestant world? And of course, there are many. I'm just saying that like there's a certain level of intensity that you get in these more hesychastic expressions of Christianity. Anyway, the point is to kill yourself though, and you can kill something you hate, but we're trying to go for killing something that you love. Like it's better to kill something that you love, but it's harder. It's harder to kill something that you love. So if you love yourself, who doesn't love themselves? It's very hard to kill that. So you kill the goat, and then after that, you get some practice. You kill yourself. But the thing that's worth loving most, like the thing that's most lovely in the world is love itself. It's God. It takes a lot of practice to be able to kill God. But here's our claim as Gyan, like from a Jnana point of view, the claim is to meet yourself, you must kill God. The price for realizing the self is killing God. So until you're willing to sacrifice your mother, you can't practice Jnana. So it's easier to kill yourself than your mother, right? It's easier to kill a goat than yourself. It's easier to kill yourself than your mother. Oh my God, I cannot post this talk on the internet. Like, I realize I'm adult. Like, what the fuck am I saying? Like, this is so problematic. Like, what is it? Matricide? Is
Yes.
it when you kill your own mother? I just don't think that we're like giving enough attention to how dark what Sri Ramakrishna was doing was. He needs to kill his mother as per his guru's instruction to realize God. I'm sure the emotional effect of that is either the same as killing your human mother, who you hopefully love and like feel reverence for, which seems to be the most abominable act a person can commit. I would say Brahma Hatya is nothing compared to Matra Hatya. What kind of person would kill his own mother? Like, think about the most violent criminals that society has ever known. I mean, you could put Genghis Khan in there and you can see it's a mama's boy.
Is that
What kind of bhakti is?
kind of bhakti is that matricide?
Yeah, imagine that kind of love, right? The kind of love that like will kill one's own. Oh my God. Anyway, huh? Like it's a dizzying thought. But like what Sri Ramakrishna had to do at that level of bhakti was unbelievable. It's equivalent to killing your own mother. Basically, it's equivalent to like giving up that which you love the most. It's like we talk about renunciation, but for us, it just means not eating Reese's for a year or something. Like, can you renounce your mother? But like that just means we don't see her. How weak. Renounce her by killing her. Can you do that? Right? Kill your mother. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, he doesn't know yet that there is a mother beyond this. So, let me be really dramatic with you, yes? He's not killing a concept or a thought. For him, it feels like he's actually killing his mother. He doesn't know that there is something beyond the concept or the thought. So, in his experience, there is a vikalpa, which he's experiencing in a very real way, like this body. This body is a vikalpa. So, like that, as tangibly as I'm experiencing my body, he's experiencing the body of Kali in his meditative vision. He's not yet certain, because he has not yet experienced Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he's not yet certain that if he were to kill his mother, he would meet his real mother. I think if your mother came to you and said, "My son, this is not my actual body." Okay, be careful. A lot of people have psychosis and they do things like this. It's very tragic and stuff like that. Like it gets very dark. But some people, have delusions. I don't mean that. Like kind of the movie, like Sh Shutter Island director. They all in a dream. Inception. That's really dark, right? It's like she thinks that by killing herself, she will like, escape the simulation. But what if she's not in a simulation? That's a very bad Pascal's wager. If she just waits, she will naturally die, right? But what if she doesn't? What if she lives forever? It's a really dark thought. Anyway, coming back to this. Sorry to scare you. Like
Good lecture. Murder, suicide, and matricide.
yeah. So murder suicide. Yeah. What's happened to me? What? No. So this idea that for Sri Ramakrishna, yeah, the Holy Trinity, murder, suicide, and matricide. My God, these Satanists like are children compared to Kali worshippers, right? Like the edgelord like of the Christian world is like, let's have sex and eat chocolate cake, right? Like they're otherwise like perfectly good people. Like their transgression is that they wear black and like eat chocolate cake and like don't go to church. Like that's it. And they're gay. The transgression is that they're like okay with being gay. Like that's it. This transgression is like killing your mother. Like it's horrific. And I'm imagining that's what Sri Ramakrishna, of course I don't know, but one can imagine is like that he must have felt like he had to do that in order to do his sadhana. Um, so he was, of course, you can imagine like there's like a hesitation here, but weirdly enough, a determination, which I guess you could argue. I mean, to be fair, you could argue this is an intuition of his real mother being beyond just the form. Like there must be that intuition that this is like leading me to mother in a real way, because all he wants is mother. And the reason he took up the sadhana is not to experience a different deity, it's to experience mother in like a deeper way, arguably a different way, not a deeper way, a different way. So he must intuit that his mother is beyond his mother. Otherwise, why would he kill his mother? So because he intuits that though, he's able to take the sword of knowledge and perform Bali on his mother. So the triple Bali of Kali Puja, you could say, is killing myself, killing the goat, killing myself, and killing my mother. Killing God. God is my mother. So deicide, but it's matricide. And I think some people are more okay with deicide than matricide. I think many of the people who killed Jesus, who knew that he was God, would be more okay with killing God than killing their mother, right? Isn't that fair? Like they would be more comfortable killing Jesus, who they probably loved more than their mother, maybe. I don't know. You will deny me thrice. But, right, like, oh my God, like the three heinous acts, like you will deny me thrice. Like,
The crucifixion of Mary would be much more kind.
wow, that was delightful. That's crazy. Like the crucifixion of Mary, because you could argue she's crucified in a much worse way, right? Like, look at Holy Mother. Think about the suffering of Holy Mother Sarada Devi, the crucifixion of Holy Mother. Oh my God, there's like a whole like Christian angle to Ramakrishna and Holy Mother that like takes you into the depths of suffering and forbearance. Because many people would ask Holy Mother, aren't you suffering? And she says, no, my child, I've never suffered a day in my life. There's a picture of joy in my heart. Just like Christ was on the crucifix singing Ilahi Ilahi Lama Sabachthani. Just like that sense of being in the midst of the most horrific suffering and realizing bliss, that Christian notion is there in Sarada Devi. So yeah, like this idea of killing your mother, it's like horrific. It's harder to kill your mother than to kill God. But this is both. It's God as mother and the mother God. So it's deicide and matricide as one. So you as the son have killed others, other children. The goat is your brother. Every worm is brother to the Nazarene. Vivekananda once said, right? Like if you are Jesus, then the whole world is yours. You're friends with the birds and with the worms even. So to kill a goat is to kill your brother. So first you have to kill Abel, right? Arguably. Are you able to kill Abel? You have to kill Abel. You kill your brother first, kill the goat. Then you have to kill yourself. Um, like I don't know. Enoch is the only one who didn't have to do that, right? Or something like Ezekiel or Enoch or something. But anyway, most of the people like to realize God, they had to somehow like die for it. So he had to kill first the brother, the goat, then himself, then finally mom, finally God as mother. So when he was able to perform that third sacrifice, then he had the experience of Kali as void. Now, this is very important. There's many different ways to understand this. You could say Kali is Shakti, is God, which you transcend to realize Godhead. So here you're saying that Godhead is different from God, to use the phrase from Meister Eckhart. He by the way, got kicked out of Christianity. because of this idea that there's Godhead, that God is not the absolute. He posited something beyond God. And that's what Buddhism and Vedanta do. They are non-theistic because they are beyond God. They're saying that God, the person who creates, maintains, and destroys the universe, which we argue must be a mother, is high, but higher than that is being in and of itself, of which God is one manifestation. God, world, and soul are all three readings of this one being, which is the impersonal reality, which when seen in one way appears as God, world, and soul, when seen in another way appears as pure, non-differentiated being. And that being in and of itself, reality in and of itself, is not God. So we have to say it's Godhead. So when we say God, we often mean the personal God, Saguna Brahman or Ishvara, to be technically precise. When we say Brahman, although Brahman can be Saguna Brahman, Ishvara, like Brahman can also mean that. It typically, for most people, means Nirguna Brahman, which is a unique idea in religion, I think. In Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, it's emphasized above all that you must go beyond God. What you call God in ignorance, you call the self in knowledge. Buddhism won't phrase it that way, but they're both saying the same thing, that there is this being in and of itself, and everything else is just a superimposition. It's empty. And once you recognize the innate emptiness of even God, the highest category, then comes clear luminosity, then comes resting, spontaneous resting in reality. Like that realization is so profound, it's so high. So one way to read this is in a more traditional Advaitic, or by Advaitic I mean Vedantic or Buddhist lens. You could say what Sri Ramakrishna did is he practiced with the Yidam, went through the Yidam, and he realized the clear light of the void. Dharmakaya, but here Dharmakaya in the sense of no self, or like whereas the Vedanta will say self. They're happy to use the word self. But by self, they again mean what the Buddhists mean, I think, effectively, more or less. Forgive me for being glib, but more or less, they mean that this is not God, but it's real, and it's not real, it is a positive something, it's something, it's not nothing, it's maybe a no thing, etc. But it's being in and of itself. So you can read this episode in that way, that what Sri Ramakrishna did was he went through God and realized Godhead, which was his final realization. That's the way that many people read it. And things are about to get very interesting now for us, because the next episode after this is so important. But coming back to this, I don't think this is the only way to read it. Even if the story ended here, it's important to me that Sri Ramakrishna would say to his Kali, "Oh mother, show me how they worship you in their churches." You know, he's not saying, show me the Christian God. He's saying, show me how they worship you in their churches. Meaning, he has his intuitive sense that what they're calling Jesus or God the Father is none other than what he calls Kali. There's only one God. But he knows it to be Kali, so he wants to experience different aspects of that one God. So that God for him, who is theistic, who is personal, is also, interestingly enough, that non-theistic absolute. So when he realizes the void, he doesn't say it's Godhead, he just says it's Ma. So, having realized God as Saguna Brahman, he says Ma. Having realized God as Nirguna Brahman, he says Ma. And what he ends up with as a result of his samadhi is a very tantric formula. Brahma or Shakti Abhed. That which you call the personal God who creates, maintains, and destroys the world is just another way of looking at or interacting with Brahman, the impersonal God, who is that same God in Samadhi. So that is to say, the snake can either wriggle, at which point it can be called Saguna Brahman, Ishvara, or God, Shakti, effectively Shakti, or that snake can be still, at which point it's called Shiva, or it can be called Nirguna Brahman. By the way, even that blue guy that you all like to meditate on, you call him Shiva. I don't know what's wrong with you. He's not Shiva. He's Shakti. Like, what? Like, are you seriously pointing to something and telling me that it's Shiva? Like, that's so weird. Shiva is formless, pure, non-dual quality. He's the void. He's not even a he. Like, the idea that there could be Shiva is ridiculous. You're Shiva. Like, there is Shiva. Shiva alone is. There is no Shiva. There's no guy that walks around with like a trident. Except that there is. He comes. People see him. But make no mistake, he's Shakti actually. It's just a form that mother likes to take in place. So by Shakti, it's not a gendered phrase at all. She comes as Shiva. She comes as Vishnu. She comes as Brahma. But this Shakti, which manifests as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, she is called Kali. She comes as Kali also. Like all of those are various expressions. But that Shakti is the God that creates, maintains, and destroys. It's God the dynamic, God the personal, the God that you can pray to and relate to and symbolically access through puja and devotional practices like singing, dancing, and whatnot. But this other God, and we don't mind using the word God here, is impersonal, is Nirguna Brahman, is better described as void or Shiva. So Shiva or void is non-different from Kali or energy, the luminosity, if you will, or the resonance. This is amazing. So we have Shiva Shakti. So what Sri Ramakrishna is articulating now is this idea of Shiva Shakti, or the idea of Kali, which is Brahma or Shakti Abhed. And he realized that because when he killed Kali, he found Kali. So taking a sword, by cutting Kali in half, he said, I took the sword of discernment and cut Mother Kali in half. When he did that, he didn't think that he actually did that. Like he might have thought it when he was doing it, but then what he realized from doing it was that all he did was move from one way of experiencing her to another. Having killed Kali, you experience Kali. That's why I think it's really beautiful. Dakini Devi here, Goddess Crystal, is saying it so beautifully. You kill the idea of who you think your mother is in your limited mind and realize the true nature as the mother, as void, as everything. So as void is important. But like again, check this out. He would, I think, soften this phrase. You cannot say her true nature is void. Because if you say her true nature is void, then you're saying that you're transcending something. You've transcended the experience of Kali as a limited personal being. But no, that's not the claim. The claim is that that's also true. Like when Sri Ramakrishna was experiencing Kali as a thought, that's true. You see? Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta will be challenged here because both Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta are both traditions that deal in falsity. So they have to point to like something appearing but not actually being there. Whereas Sri Ramakrishna's non-duality, it's more bhakta oriented, theistic bhakta. It deals in affirmation. So if something appears to me, I don't have to like discern that it's not really there. The fact that it appears to me means it's there in some sense. So the claim here is actually so dramatic that he did not discover the true Kali. He already had the true Kali. He was perfectly satisfied with his true Kali for a time. But then he had this desire to experience more of Kali. So I like really have to nuance this here. He's not experiencing Kali as void as a final realization, though indeed the tradition sometimes presents this episode as that. I would argue he's just experiencing a fuller picture of Kali that includes both these aspects. How do we know? Because this isn't the end of the story. If it was, like, by the way, if this was the last thing that happened in Sri Ramakrishna Sadhana, then we could have this debate and it would be really wonderful. Somebody could say, the true Kali is void, she's beyond all limitations, she's nirguna, and he experienced the true Kali because he went beyond limitations. And then I will argue, no, like, that limited form is also Kali. Like, he was verily experiencing Kali, and now he experiences Kali different. We can have this debate. Like, but the fact of the matter is the story continues. And here's what happens next. When you experience the true Kali, what will you do? Will you go back to the false Kali? In other words, when you get the real thing, what will the false thing mean to you? Well, you might realize that it's no longer worth doing, so maybe rituals fall away or something. But Sri Ramakrishna didn't leave Kali as a result of Brahman. In fact, he went back to singing and chanting and dancing, and he went back to worshipping, and like all the stuff continued. And this really disturbed Thotapuri, because you could say that like Thotapuri was disturbed that a person who had his realization would not give up the things that he realized as part of his realization to be like false, limited, constructs, vikalpas. Totapuri was like, why don't you close your eyes and just be absorbed in Brahman? Why do you have to clap your hands? So Totapuri would make fun of Ramakrishna. He would say like, all you do is make chapatis. Why do you keep making chapatis? So there's all this like, whole conversation around why continue to participate in the world. Because Totapuri didn't. He was a ghoul. He was just like wandering about, sitting by himself, not engaging with anyone, not talking to anyone, and most like initiating people, but even that very rarely. Like he was a living dead man. The Rob Zombie song. But this person, Ramakrishna, having had the same realization, and Totapuri, of course, can verify that because he's a guru and he can see in his disciple that state has been attained. Why then, having attained that state, would Sri Ramakrishna continue to live in the world? And by that is not just meant worshipping God, also means being with others, talking to them, hanging out, transacting. Why would you continue to transact in the world, having recognized its illusion? It would be stupid. Like actually, like imagine someone thought there was a lake in the distance and then wanted to go there. But then you managed to show them that it was a mirage, and then they still wanted to go there. Isn't that weird? It's so weird. It's like I thought you wanted to go there because you're thirsty and you want water. Now you know there's no water there and you still want to go there? Like why would you make a pretense of things? Like just be in reality. Um I'm trying to think of like maybe a person who plays pretend at doing something and then actually gets to do it. They might give up their playing pretend. It's like yeah, you can say like for the plot, but why? Like why for the plot? Like why would that even be valuable? It's like Thotapuri couldn't understand why the plot would be valuable. Like the idea of Leela, the idea of plot, like who is playing? Like who is enjoying the play? To whom is the play offered? Like it just makes no sense from that point of formless Brahman. Shakti as Leela, as play, as plot. And by the way, the word plot might have something to do with the play, word play, yeah?
One confusing thing about
Yeah.
Tottapati is that his stomach hurts, he can't stand it, he tries to commit suicide, while Ramakrishna has throat cancer and seems to be jolly about it.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
going on?
exactly. That's a really deep thing. So hold that thought too. But another thing is, didn't Totapuri do the exact same thing that Sri Ramakrishna did, which was like kill himself?
Hmm.
But why did they have different experiences? But did they? Because I would argue that Totapuri realized God when he killed himself. So wait, hold this thought about the throat cancer. Coming back to this idea of Leela, Sri Ramakrishna continued to sing and dance and have fun. Totapuri is like not about fun, he's about truth. But in this sense, he was still about fun because he did like to talk about Advaita Vedanta. He liked to sit by the fire. There's another episode where someone comes and lights their fire, like their cigarette, on his dhuni. And the dhuni is a sacred fire. So he holds that fire to be sacred, make no mistake. And that person comes and he puts the cigarette, a bidi, on the dhuni, and Totapuri takes his uh, thongs, his Naga Baba thongs, and chases that guy. He says, hey, how dare you light your cigarette on my sacred fire? Like that's not the use of the sacred fire. I'm putting ghee into it. I'll tell you another story. Once a sadhu told me, he said, so I have this habit where when I'm doing a homa, I like traditionally I try my best to get the best wood and then like really good ghee, and the things that I put in the fire are all things that I would like myself to eat, so I don't want to feed God something that I wouldn't eat, stuff like that. Like the fire is like a God, so you feed God. But then I get to this point at the end of the homa where I just want to throw everything into the fire that can burn. So like the boxes in which the wood came, I like tear it up and throw it into the fire. Or like the newspaper that I might have carried something in, I tear it up and throw it into the fire, like soak it in ghee and throw it into the fire. Like, and this is usually because I run out of samagri and I want to keep going. So if I run out of ghee and if I run out of samagri and if I like want to continue offering into the fire, I get this poetic sense of joy when I can just like offer everything into the fire. But I was chastised for it. Once while I was doing it, a sadhu, no, not while I was doing it, but a sadhu who knew that I was doing it said something to me very sternly. He said, "Do you know?" He just so casually said it. He said, "Do you know? Only asuras throw trash into fires to interrupt the yagyas of rishis." So that's a common motif in the Puranas. Like a rishi is doing a homa with beautiful wood and beautiful ghee, and then to desecrate the fire, an asura comes and throws like things into it, like cigarettes and stuff like that. Like the asura comes and puts whiskey in it. So you can imagine a rishi is offering purified ghee, just thinking of God, very sattvic, swaha, swaha. And then Mahishasura comes and he sits down, he pours alcohol in it. And then you look at Mahisha, you're like, what did you just do? And Mahisha's like, ha 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 ha. You can imagine. Huh?
My guy.
I know he's delighting in fucking with your fire. That's what the demons do. They laugh at your religion and they like try to thwart God. Like that's kind of their vibe, right? So I was doing this. I was offering, like instinctively, I was offering trash to my fire because my idea is that like I can't eat the cardboard or the thing. Like I don't have the digestive power to eat some of these things that I'm offering Mother. But like Mother's digestive power is she can devour the whole universe. So I'm like, you're gonna eat me. You're gonna eat all of this. Soon you as time will eat this anyway. So this fire, which symbolizes consciousness, which symbolizes time, has the power to devour anything. So here, like take everything. And this sadhu like chastised me. He said, it's a trash fire at this point. He said, you've made a trash fire and you're calling it a homa. And he didn't have to say more. I was embarrassed. Like he just said that, and I was like, yeah, he was an older sadhu, It's like, yeah, I guess he's right. And so I was like kind of conflicted about this for a while because I had this urge to throw everything into the fire. And then again, in our Homa tradition, we do have a sense of not doing that. So this is another one of my moments where like a Vamachara instinct came, and then it's like tempered by a more um like Dakshinachara kind of thing. Yeah, and you could say like that's why the Tantric tradition has like things like Matangi Ma. But again, you guys, there's nuance here because with Matangi, I also have a bad habit where I've been chastised. And this time actually, never mind. I don't need to get into the story of how, but like I used to like lick at the Matangi Prasad and give it because that's what the mantra says. Leya choshana panadi tambulam anulepanam nirmalyam bhojanam pushpam Tubhyam dadami Shri Shivagyaya. By the command of Lord Shiva, I now offer you this food that has been licked and tasted and desecrated. So I'm like, oh, it's an instruction mantra. So I'm like, or I take a bite and I give it, or I throw trash, or like that was my understanding of the mantra, and that was my understanding of Matangi. But actually I was corrected in this way. Like in the Purana, well, not Kamika, what's it called? Pranatoshini or like Shakti Sangama, like these are kind of later Puranas, where we learn about the Mahavidyas. The thing about Matangi is that her origin story refers to her arising from the leftovers of God. Right? Like the story is something like Shiva and Parvati are with Vishnu and Lakshmi or something, and some food falls to the floor. But because Shiva is the one who dropped it, it turns into a beautiful 16-year-old maiden. And Shiva is like, because you have arisen from the food, you are Matangi, and people shall worship you with leftovers. But wait, the leftover in question is not like Nisha's like ramen that he made at 7 in the morning, thinking that it would help him go to fuck to bed, but like he never ate it. So poor Jayarata had to be like here with this bowl of ramen that I put in front of mine. I took all of 2 bites of and left alone. That's not it. That's not what Matangi is going to come out of. The Puranic claim is that she comes out of God's leftovers. So in the puja, actually, it's very interesting, and we'll cover all of this later when we get deeper into the puja. But you don't actually offer your leftovers to God. You offer the things that you've already offered the other deities in the puja, that's what you give to Matangi. So Matangi eats the achishta food of gods. She's like, if you put it this way, she's the first one to get prasad. And there's a nuance to this. And you could even argue that this nuance is a kind of move to the right from within the left. And yesterday, something very interesting happened. Um, I'm making a trash fire, according to the sadhu, and I'm getting a lot of spiritual nourishment from it because I'm thinking about how fire consumes the trash. It's symbolic for how like everything pure and impure gets dissolved in consciousness, like overcoding everything with an Advaitic understanding and with the understanding of transgression and Vamachara, like Matangi, like all of that is helping me ritually enact my philosophical understanding, and so I'm nourished by it. I'm enjoying this trash fire kind of thing. So that being said, as a non-dualist, you can still have a sense for the sacred, obviously, and you can still feel like this would be inappropriate. So I go back and forth with things like that sometimes. And I feel like I'm in good company because Totapuri, who was established in the formless absolute, he himself had a problem with someone lighting their cigarette in the fire. So even yesterday, I had this very interesting occurrence where like um we're around a fire and someone is smoking a cigarette over there, and I'm doing some homa, and then it's time now to offer all the trash, like pieces of wood and all that I'm offering. And then this person ashes their cigarette in the homa kunda. And like it was so weird. Like I flinched because that act, and even you flinched. It's like the act of ashing the cigarette, like treating it like something you're just like ash. This is Kali. Like you can't just ash your cigarette on Kali. Like why would you? Oh my God. But then I looked at the trash that I was holding, and there was this wonderful moment of cognitive dissonance, which was just like, oh my God, this is where Kali lives. It's neither right nor wrong to do this. It's both and neither. Like we're just fucked. Like in this moment, we're all fucked. Like he's fucked because he's fucked. Like he should not do that. I'm fucked because I could tell him not to do that, but that would be hypocrisy because I'm doing that. Like it was just a really interesting, beautiful moment, and it's like, this is just how I felt during my Bali. Like it's like everything is just like,
Everything's fucked both in the Kali Puja.
everything is fucked. You're so fucked. Like it's like being fucked and stabbed at the same time. It's like, what do you even do? And so I'm there getting fucking stabbed or stabbingly fucked, and my mind is just like frozen. But you can imagine, like, this moment is poignant when somebody comes and lights the cigarette on your duni. They don't understand the sacredness of the duni. They're innocently lighting the cigarette. But Totapuri felt angry. Once, and this another time, I was doing a homa and somebody came who didn't really understand the homa. Really sweet person, close friend, but just wasn't part of this world. And so he took his foot with the shoe on and put his foot on a log to push it more into the homa kunda. It was really funny because like the feeling that you get from someone using their foot to like kick a log that is sacred, to you, like it's just a sense of, oh my God, you're stepping all over my, I don't know. Imagine you have like a beautiful dress that you love, your wedding dress, and someone comes and like steps all over it. Or someone comes and tramples your child or something. That's the feeling. It's like horrific. And I checked myself from saying something because I didn't want the space to not be inclusive for him. I didn't want to feel like I didn't want him to feel like, I didn't want to embarrass him, basically. So I didn't say anything. That night, the lighter fluid, that was that night the lighter fluid exploded and all the lighter fluid went over me. I got burnt nicely. And then later, another sadhu said to me, see, because I was describing, it's like, so what happened? Like, why did you, like, what can you fix next time? And I said, I was just fool. Like, I don't know how the lighter ended up there. But then, of course, these are sadhus. We think in different terms, as it were, right? She's like, okay, what did you do? The Bhuta mantras? Were you properly protected from the Bhutas? Like, is that part of your puja needing review? And then we were talking about these things, and I said, "Oh yeah, I remember somebody kicked the law." And the sadhu was like immediately like, because he's experienced, he's been doing Homa his whole life. He's got 40 years of Homa experience. He was like immediately like, "Ah, you see, if things like that happen, she'll get angry and she might lash out." Not because like a mother, by the way, might do something that can hurt you, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she's irritated. Mother Kali might be irritated with things. So if you like kick it into the fire, which was not done with reverence, right? Which is just kind of done, she might not like it. And if you ash your cigarette, she might not like it. If you put trash into the fire, she might not like it, you know? So it's a very interesting question. And like, I'm loving and reverently doing a homa, and someone comes and unconsciously and in good faith, like tries to help the homa by doing something that would be ritually transgressive. And I'm the one that gets burnt for it. So like that's kind of a confusing sort of thing. Of course, because I'm doing the homa. So as a person doing the homa, whether I'm the yagya kartra or the yagyaman, like that happened on my watch. I didn't enforce against it. I didn't say anything about it, and therefore I'm responsible for it. So now I, who am lovingly and reverently devoted to Mother Kali, am being scalded and burned by Mother Kali. What do you make of that? I lovingly and reverently put a white flower on my altar and she threw it back in my face. Bhairav Anand lovingly and reverently put mala around Mother Kali's neck, and all the diyas like exploded and spluttered, and it was like horror, like it was really interesting what happened that night. Because I knew also he came home from a recital. He had played Bansuri at the Krishna temple, and they'd given him this garland of wildflowers. And beautiful, beautiful white garland. And naturally, when he got home, the first thing he wanted to do was offer it to Kali, to Siddheshwari. So he takes off his garland and he goes and he gives it to Siddheshwari, right? Like, here, Ma, I surrender the fruits of my performance to you. I already knew. I was like, these are white flowers. Please be careful. In this household, I don't know why, but she doesn't seem to like it. She maybe is responding to my age. I don't know what it is. But I had the sense, but I was like, look, you know who this fucking is? Bhairav Anand. The most cultured, most refined, most loving. Literally, I think he's the most loving and reverent and like respectful and respectable person in the world. Like I like next to my guru maybe like even then I think Bhairav Anand in terms of refinement, it's like he's a Brahmana par excellence, right? Like, in my opinion, a true Brahmana. So I'm like, as a Kshatriya, with respect to Brahmanas, I'm like, look, I'm not going to tell a Brahmana not to do a ritual act, especially given that I can clearly see that it's full of love and reverence and devotion. So I didn't say anything. He put the mala around Ma, and because it's Bhairavanand, I didn't say anything. Like, he's the kind of person that I feel very tentative about saying anything to. So then he came and he sat down, and then almost immediately and indubitably must have been that act. All the lamps started doing something they'd never done before, where they spluttered and fire was coming out everywhere. It's like it seemed like a dramatic response. Now you could read this many ways. You could say, "Oh, she's excited. See, she's so happy. She's received the prana for the puja." Say what you want. Maybe she was excited that the person put the food in. The outcome, though, was that I was burned. And the outcome is that the house could have caught on fire. And like, if you have that bhava, good, I'll meet you in this mashan. But I'm in the house, and I don't want to be burned. I don't want the house to get burned out in one sense. So therefore, I think I'm not going to offer white flowers to the ma here, and I think I'm not gonna like maybe kick the wood in my homa, and I think I'm not gonna ash my cigarette in the homa, and I think I'm not gonna offer trash in the homa. However loving or reverent I think I am, because God forbid I make any claims on my bhakti, my love, and my reverence, because I only think I have those things. So I don't know. I don't know that I've ever done anything reverently in my life. I only make the pretense. Oh ma, oh ma, oh ma. What nonsense. I don't know anything about God. I don't know anything about bhakti. We're only playing pretend. So on that basis of playing pretend, that I should have the hubris to think that I don't have to follow the rules, I'm in a particular mood because I've been doing so much puja, like this non-stop puja for 5 days, 6 days in a row. You really start to see that like this isn't a joke. There are things here that we don't understand that are real, and that if you play around with it, I challenge you, try, see what will happen to you. Like it's important to like learn how to handle fire and electricity. But because these things are subtler than fire and electricity, the same level of caution and safety is not there. You don't have Smokey the Bear come on TV and tell you only you can prevent wildfires by properly observing the rules and etiquette of Homa and making sure you do your preliminary purification. Like Smokey the Bear is not going to warn you about Tantra. He's going to warn you about fires and electricity. So no one is going to warn you about Tantra, so you think that you can do whatever you want. And you'll justify it based on, and I do at least, based on philosophy and based on like some idea of doing it out of devotion. Because there are places in the text that enable me to say that, but I don't know. Like my lived experience of it so far seems to be pointing to something different, which is like it's a thing. Like all the things, all these rules, like there's a reason for them. And if we philosophically, based on a concept, or devotionally based on a sentiment, try to play around with some of these things, we very quickly get burned because we realize we know not what we do. Yeah, so my claim here is that like this is a challenging thing because I know the rule, and that is don't ash your cigarette. But I also instinctively want to put the trash into the fire. I don't think it's trash. It's just like cardboard and pieces of paper, but it's not like, I mean, it's not like Homa appropriate, right? So there's this kind of moment where I'm like, which is it? Like, what do I do? Do I tell him not to ash the cigarette? How can I say that when I just now made a claim about how Kali is Swatantriya? And then I didn't want to get into the philosophical complexity of like working out why I just said that and now I'm telling him not to put the cigarette. And how can I tell when I myself am putting trash? So we just kept quiet. We just didn't say anything at all in that moment. I mean, I kept quiet. Of course, he didn't know it, but I was like quiet. And then I, reflecting now on that, it's like you can imagine Totapuri, he's angry that somebody lit the cigarette in his duni. So he took his fire tongs and he was about to like chase the guy. And Sri Ramakrishna started laughing. He exploded laughing. And he was laughing, laughing, laughing. And Totapuri's like, "Why are you laughing at me?" And Totapuri's like, "You should also be offended that at our dhuni, somebody came and lit their cigarette. They disrespected this sacred fire and treated it like just like their footstool or something. They think God is for lighting my cigarette. Hooray, like this is a sacred fire, etc. How dare he? Shouldn't you be upset?" And Sri Ramakrishna was laughing and he said, "Now I see the value of your Advaita." Basically, the claim is like you're still attached to ideas of purity and impurity. Like if you were really free of the idea of impurity and purity, then maybe this could be true. But like maybe we aren't. And even Totapuri, even he at his level wasn't fully free of that idea. So much so that he had a reaction to this. I'm trying to make sense of the fact that some of us don't have reactions to this, but it's not because we've transcended purity and purity. Like the same person who has no problem offering trash to the home of fire has horrific hang-ups around other things in the world. The only reason they don't have a hang up around the home of fire is because culturally they're not conditioned to have a hang up around the home of fire. But that doesn't mean they're free of all cultural conditioning just because they're free of all Indian cultural conditioning. Do you see? A lot of people feel that because they're not worried about Indian cultural rules, which they learn in the world of Hindu Tantra, they therefore are free of all purity and impurity. But actually, they're like just as dualistically bound by purity and impurity in every other area of their life, except in Homa and in Puja, because they don't actually even believe in those things. You know, if you were really free of pure and impurity, you would literally have no hang up anywhere, anytime. You'll always be a child of Ma, always full of joy, like nothing would bother you, etc., etc. And therefore, Sri Ramakrishna was actually in that state. And so he felt like, so what if God comes and with God lights God in God's fire, like as a result of God's Leela? Like, so what? It's not a big deal that God lights her own cigarette in the Homa fire. And then you get all these stories of saints who put their foot on the lingam, and Sri Ramakrishna putting his foot on like you get all sorts of like crazy stories of these crazy transgressions by people who would otherwise be horrified of such an act. And so all of this is going on. And I guess like, God. Don't make no mistake. It's like it's pretty up there. Like it's as far as realization goes, it's like arguably the highest, most saintliest realizations you can have. And Sotapuri is a saint. He's regarded as a saint. He's revered as a saint. And even a saint has these hang-ups. Coming back to the Christian and Orthodox churches now, you have great saints who are horrifically dogmatic. There's still areas in which they're not like fully awakened or free. Places where prana doesn't fully flow, so to speak. So now comes another very important episode where Sri Ramakrishna now becomes the guru. At first, he accepts Totapuri as the guru. Totapuri teaches him Advaita Vedanta in that he attains yogic nirvikalpa samadhi. And in yogic nirvikalpa samadhi, he then realizes the void nature of Ma and goes back to worshipping Ma, which is deeply disturbing to Totapuri. So Totapuri like asks him about it. Sri Ramakrishna is like, you wouldn't get it, etc. Then one day, one night rather, Totapuri wakes up with a really bad stomach ache and he'd been having it for so long and like he didn't know what to do about it because no herbs were working. And the problem is that it was impeding his meditation. He was like not sure about this body's ability to continue his like life. And also because of his spiritual state, he came to regard the body as merely clothes that you could swap in and out of. He's in a very high state, so he can see disembodied beings. There might be a being sitting there, you might not see him, but he can see him. He can talk to him. So he also understands things about reality that's a bit higher than us. Not that he's interested though. he doesn't care about it. It's all just Maya for him. But he sees more. He sees more of Maya than we do. But he doesn't care about it. We see less of Maya and we care about it so much. Like if we only knew how many different beings there were, it's a very complicated world actually. But we simplify it and then we attach ourselves to the simplified version of it. Totapuri is experiencing arguably more of the magical display of phenomena. And so he's able then to say, well, if I need a new body, I'll just throw this one away, and maybe if I need a new one, I'll get a new one. But because I've had Brahma Gyana, if I throw the body away, I'll just merge in Brahma Gyana. There'll be nothing for me to anchor into. So it's a kind of informed sort of suicide. It's not suicide out of like depression or a suicide out of a desire to get rid of the body. It's like a suicide out of like the sense of like, I'm in control here. There's no God, it's just me. And this is an obvious logical choice. The body has a problem. Who knows why? And it's preventing me from being in Brahman, being in truth. So what do I do when there's something preventing me from being in truth? I deal with it. So let me just go drown this body and go back to Samadhi. So with this resolve, he goes to the banks of the Ganga and he starts entering into the Ganga to be able to like drown himself. It's just like Sri Ramakrishna, who was about to perform a Bali, Totapuri was about to perform a Visarjan. This is a unique thing. When you are a sadhu, like Totapuri, when you are a saint, very rarely will you be cremated. Do you know this? The tradition is not to cremate saints. I've seen many Manikarnika, it's beautiful actually. I've seen many Manikarnika Ghat Smashan cremations, at, uh, also at Harishchandra Ghat. But there you also tend to see a lot of monks getting burned. There's a lot of sadhus, but they don't get burned. Often they get in a beautiful procession, they get brought and immersed in the water. So it's Visarjan. Do you see how interesting? Sri Ramakrishna, who is a Kali Bhakta, the way that he does his suicide is in the context of Kali worship, Bali. Whereas Totapuri, who belongs to a different tradition, the way that he does suicide is like in the way that that tradition prescribes, which is to walk into the water and be immersed. Like I think that's something that's so cool to me, that there are even these like a sense of like traditional ways of doing things. Isn't that beautiful? So okay, he then goes, walks into the water, and we know the story. It's a beautiful story. It's like a miracle. It's like the reverse Jesus miracle. Because Jesus is walking on water and he's like, "Wherefore didst thou doubt, Peter? Now come to me." And like it's cool. Jesus, he knows that it's cool to walk on water. And that's why the way to avoid zombie Jesus is just to go underwater with a straw. Because Jesus, I'm kidding. So Jesus walks on water. Totapuri is walking on water, but he's like, "What? I'm trying to drown." Like, and arguably he's not walking on water. He's like wading in the water. But no matter how much he wades out into the Ganga, it seems like there wasn't enough Ganga Jal to immerse him. And that's when he realized something really profound, that it's not up to him, actually. Like, this stomach ache wasn't up to him. If he could, he wouldn't. Why? Who gave the stomach ache? Kali gave the stomach ache. And then the body, who gave the body? Kali gave the body. But wait, just as he was powerless in birth, so too is he powerless in death. Because he doesn't even have the ability to kill his own body. That's why when people like kill themselves, I'm like, only mother can allow you to do that. If Mā Kālī Bhairava doesn't want you at that time, you cannot compel him to come and take you. So if you try to kill suicide, if you try to kill yourself, it's hubris because Mā Kālī Bhairava might not agree. He might be like, "Oh yeah, you think you can just like slit your wrist and I'll come to you? Watch this." And instead somebody catches you and then you go to the psych ward and you like attempted suicide and you regret it and all that. And I think a lot of attempted suicide people regret that. And often it's because maybe they realize like it's not gonna end well because you don't have control over your own death. You know, I don't I would like never mind. But like I almost want to like prove it, but maybe there's this idea of like what do you say? You cannot actually. Something will like, and Manikarnika is a great example. A lot of people want to die there. And the proof is this. So many people make a plan to die at Manikarnika Ghat, and then those plans get foiled by the most absurd things. Yeah, and Gretchen, I'm happy that it feels obvious because we don't need to test this. I certainly hope we won't. And be careful. Like, don't test it. But again, maybe I'm making a slightly more unhinged statement here. It's like if you do it, it's God's will. Like only God can like let you do it actually. Because this is what Totapuri realized. You don't have the right to kill yourself. You cannot. If you think you can and you do, it's actually because God did it. And if you think you can, you do, and you realize you can't, that makes you think about um like makes you think about like, oh, like what do I do actually here? And so Thotapuri, he's having this reflection, but it's arguably not intellectual. It's not a kind of vichara. Instead, he sees Ma, like he has a vision of Ma. Now, it's not quite clear what that vision is. We don't really have Thotapuri's account. Sri Ramakrishna didn't really go into it too much, I don't think, because we don't know what he saw. We imagine that maybe he saw a vision of Ma, like with arms. But like we know Sri Ramakrishna, his first vision of Ma was not Ma with arms. It was Ma like in terms of light in terms of Saguna Brahman is like pure light or something like that. Whereas with Totapuri, it could have been like that, or it could have been her voice, disembodied voice, who knows? But he was a changed man. Like that moment when he was able to kill himself, he saw God. Before he already saw himself because he killed God. Do you see how they're inverse journeys? Sri Ramakrishna kills himself and then he sees God. Totapuri killed God and saw himself. Now they had to do the other sacrifice. Now this man, Ramakrishna, had to kill God to see himself, and Totapuri had to kill himself to see God. So until both of them had become right murderers, they were not ready to enter the court of the queen of the murderers, the queen of the dacoits, the thug lady Kali. So he sees Kali and then he realizes, oh, there's Shakti actually. It's not God. It's something even deeper than God. It's that Shakti which empowers God, who creates, maintains, and destroys, by whose will this body has come into being, by whose will I have a stomach ache, by whose will I can't even kill myself. She's showing me now that I am in her jurisdiction, not she in mine. And that's when Shiva realizes what this is. Basically, I'm going to make a sectarian claim. I hope you don't mind. Advaita Vedanta, we argue, is like a Leela within Shaivism. It's like Shiva plays his Leela of like thinking he's like free. And then a lot of the text in the Shakta, Mahabhagavata Purana, like your freedom is not embodied. That's why it blew my fucking mind yesterday when Yogeshwari sang that Old Norse song. First of all, I was stunned that Yogeshwari could sing in Old Norse and in Gaelic and in Slavic. I was like, Yogeshwari, what the fuck? Like, why didn't you tell me this? Like, where did you learn all of this? But no, she like really authentically sings these. I wouldn't know how authentically, but I'm basing this claim on how it made me feel and how the accent sounded. It was just like those three songs had very distinct, different accents, and I was like, wow, like, these are actually those languages. I don't speak those languages, but I might recognize certain things. And there was this song that she sang in Old Norse, which she then explained was Freya chastising Odin. And so what happens? Odin is like sitting in meditation, and arguably he's got a big beard. He's like on his quest for knowledge. He gives up one eye for knowledge. The whole myth of Odin and his quest for wisdom. And I'm starting to understand it's more like a Shiva sort of Jnana kind of figure, you know? And Freya, as Shakti, as the Divine Mother, is chastising him in this song. And each line is like, oh, Odin, was it worth it? That's the refrain. Or, oh, Odin, what have you found? Or what have you, something, I forget how she translated it exactly. And it was a refrain, you know, again and again. It was such a lament. It was like a tragic song. It was like, you've gone on this quest for knowledge and you've become a desiccated, dried out ghoul, a husk of a person. You've cut yourself off from the energies of life. In your quest for transcendence, you've done a kind of suicide. It's dry suicidal advice, as Swamiji called it. And so the goddess comes to hold your hand and say, wait, there's something else I must show you. And so Totapuri is Shiva. And as Shiva, he created this universe, entered into it as a Punjabi man who for 40 years wandered about naked, perfecting his samadhi. And as this Punjabi samadhi like extraordinaire, as this saint, he forgot maybe that he was Shiva. And he thought that he was Brahman. And as Brahman, he was not able to access a deeper realization, which is, we call it the going beyond Vijnana Kala, going into the Mantreshwara, Mahamantreshwara kind of like level, where you realize, oh wait, Shakti is me. And for the sake of a Leela, Shakti has generated this universe. And within this universe, I'm having my being. And actually, I'm within her jurisdiction because that's by design. You know, her chanchala, her fickleness is what keeps all this fresh and beautiful and exciting. And I, as Shiva, am delighted by my own Shakti appearing to me in all these different ways, in a myriad ways, ways I couldn't predict. And that realization, that chamatkara, is felt as devotion, as surrender. Like, I'm not in control here. She is. And when you realize that, you realize her. But when you realize her, you realize you. I'm Shiva, you're Shakti. And oh my fucking God, we're having sex. Like, this is it. Like sex got boring like 5 million years ago. So we like refined sex so much that this is what it looks like to fuck now. The foreplay has gone so crazy. Like you have to create aeons of samsara before like, you know, this union can happen. So it's just this exquisite foreplay between lovers. And then you're finally forced to confront a fact that maybe they're right. Maybe this reality is Shiva and Shakti. Literally just these two who are really one. But even without any philosophical framework, that's like, this is just true. Like, we are just Shiva experiencing himself for fun. And the whole thing comes up and goes away in like a whiff, like the DMT come down, like the psychedelic, like revelation. And there's like, whoa, that like, all of this is Shiva's chillum rip, you know? He takes one big rip of his chillum. This whole thing happens in which I'm talking to you, and there's a Ramakrishna, He's like, looks at Parvati and he's like, whoa. You know, you can imagine the whole thing is nothing more than a moment in Lord Shiva's bong rip. He just like, it's a chiller moment. And it's a chilling thought because it's a pure nihilism, as it were, grounded in the deepest sense of meaning where I'm like, nothing fucking matters because it's all just this beautiful, like just wonderful, like appearance and disappearance of Shakti and like yum. There's nothing to it but her beauty. And that arguably that's what Totapuri maybe experiences. He experiences chamatkar, a poetic rapture. When he experiences his mother, he realizes that he didn't create the body, he can't kill the body, he's in her womb, in her jurisdiction. The whole thing is contained within mother, as it were. And so then he goes to the temple, which is really weird because he wouldn't have otherwise set foot in a temple. And he like there's a beautiful movie, the 1950s movie, and they've depicted it in this beautiful way where like kind of collapses and he's still stunned. He doesn't understand why he's like here. He's like, he's in the temple. He's like, why am I in the temple? The same reason as I don't understand why I'm holding a knife and looking down at this like whimpering animal. It's like the same, maybe like, not to compare, you know, 'cause it's different, but like the feeling of sadhana bringing us to things that we never thought we would do. Totapuri never thought he would go into a temple, you know, like that idea. But there he was. And that didn't mean he was comfortable with it. That's an important point. Also, he was there and kind of stunned. So Ramakrishna came and sat with him and taught him about Kali. And in the movie, this might be anachronistic, but Sri Ramakrishna sang this Amar Matam he sung, which Swami Vivekananda sang when he had his conversion experience. So this is a legit conversion experience. So you can say there's enlightenment and there's a conversion experience. I'm making this up, okay? Like these are terms from different traditions, and even the word enlightenment doesn't really feature in the Indic tradition. I'm just gonna like put these words in front of you, okay? Here's how I understand them. Enlightenment is when you realize what you are. Conversion is when you realize what God is. And some traditions are based more on enlightenment, others are based more on conversion. They're based like God-based theistic traditions would care about conversion, where you like actually know that God is real. That's the equivalent of being pulled out of the gutter. Like it's like that's conversion. Like you know that there's something worthwhile, and your fear is that somehow like it will be like undone, right? Like that conversion experience is irreversible recognition. But then so too is enlightenment. It's an irreversible realization of yourself. So the yogi might be afraid that he will forget who he is. And you're afraid that you'll forget who God is. Because we know that remembering who I am and remembering who God is, enlightenment and conversion, these are significant moments that have changed our lives forever, for the better, actually. So now we have these two concepts, and you could argue that what Sri Ramakrishna is showing us is that we're not done, we're not complete until we've done both. Until our religion is encapsulating both enlightenment and conversion, it's not the fullest kind of realization that we can have. So therefore, when Sri Ramakrishna gets his enlightenment experience through Totapuri, it's equally important that Totapuri gets his conversion experience through Ramakrishna. So much so that Totapuri had to say to Sri Ramakrishna, this was all your Leela. It's like, I know it. It was your Leela that caused me to like feel the stomach ache, caused me to experience all of this, to try to drown. Like the thought that I should kill myself came from you. And then when I went to the Ganga, that I couldn't kill myself, that was also your Leela. And by your grace, and as we bow to Sri Ramakrishna, the Guru bows to the disciple and then goes off. 11 months Totapuri stayed in Dakshineshwar with Sri Ramakrishna when his habit was only to be in a place for like at most 3 days. Pure is the water that flows, pure is the sadhu who goes. Totapuri followed that rule as diligently as he followed the rule of not owning any possessions, of keeping his dhuni constantly lit, of meditating every day and having samadhi every day. He followed every single rule. But this one he couldn't follow because he couldn't leave Ramakrishna. And he couldn't leave Ramakrishna because mother was calling to him to complete, arguably to complete his realization. I was debating with the monk actually, who was Advaita Vedantin. And my question was, what did Sri Ramakrishna teach Totapuri? I was so happy because he was like quickly changed the conversation. Because the moment you say, what did Ramakrishna teach Totapuri, you've already implied that there's something higher than Advaita Vedanta. Because it doesn't have to be higher, it just has to be different. But the fact that it's still desirable means that it completes Advaita Vedanta. So if you have Advaita Vedanta, but you haven't completed with Kali, then arguably it's desirable to go further. And so Totapuri went as far as he could with Advaita Vedanta. And in India, we realize that will take you as far as you can, then Tantra will take you the rest of the way, which is the argument of like Shakti. By Tantra, by the way. My guru defines Tantra in a different way. Vedanta being defined as the description of the absolute truth, which here is Brahma or Shakti Abhed. Then Tantra being the upaya, the means to realize that truth. That's one way to understand these two things. But understood philosophically, Tantra is the presentation of the divine mother, divine Shakti. And that Shakti, the realization of Shakti, is arguably a higher realization and the realization of Shiva only. So Brahma or Brahman or Shiva is Kevala Advaita, is Shiva only. That's a good realization. But Shiva Swabhayava iti Shaktihi. But the essence of Shiva, the Sara of Shiva, is Shakti. So the quest for the absolute is the quest not just for the still, it's a quest for the dynamic. So when Sri Ramakrishna was coming back to our central theme, pardon the pun, because we're about to enter into the Sushumna Nadi now, if you don't mind. Coming back to the Vamachara stuff, Sri Ramakrishna is all about symbols and worshipping the Divine Mother and all about devotion. And through Vamachara, and by Vamachara, I don't mean necessarily transgressive practices, though his practice did include that. It meant devotion. It meant Vama, the mother. Vama, the one who sits to the left of Shiva. Vamanata, Bhagas, she is the mother to whom he gave all his love and did puja for. Then when he mastered that, when he had conversion, then he was able to come and master the Pingala, which he did very quickly because of the energy flowing in the Vama. So he very quickly transferred that energy, mastered that path, and then met in the middle where both were available to him now. He knew God as the void and would commune with her in that way, and he knew God as form, as the world, as the magical display of phenomena, which he thought was equally true. So in one place, Swami Turiyananda wrote a beautiful letter in response to a disciple who asked, what is Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy exactly? And after the disclaimer that you can't pigeonhole someone like Vivekananda or Ramakrishna into any one philosophy, he then said that if I had to sum it up, I would say this: Brahma Satyam, Jagat Satyam, Jiva Brahmeva Na Paraha. God is real and the world is real, and you are nothing but God. It's very different from Shankara's formulation, which is Brahma Satyam, Jiva Mityam. Jagat Mityam, and also Jiva Mityam, actually, right? Shankara thinks God, world, and individuals are all fake. But what here we're saying, no, it's all real. So Sri Ramakrishna could not subtract. Do you know that we were talking about this the other day? He literally could not subtract from his sums. He just didn't have the. And why? Energy has to flow in the nadis to be able to perform certain functions. If you cannot do something, like you just cannot imagine, if you cannot understand subtraction, it's because the nadis are not open in that way. Or like the nadis don't flow in that way. So for Sri Ramakrishna, he could not subtract. No, I'm finding that as I do sadhana, the peculiarities are developing in terms of diet and in terms of relations, in terms of like things like it has to do with the arguably that we say the flow of energies that should change as a result of sadhana, which then might affect behavior or might affect diets, etc. So mathematics is affected by nadis, in fact by sadhana, as it were. And he couldn't do subtraction because his realization, which of course then was only intuition, but now a full-fledged thing, his realization was that Brahma Satyam, Jagat Satyam. God is real, the world is real. The Nirguna Brahman is true, and even God, the creator, maintainer, and destroyer, is true. They're all true. Everything is real, everything is true, everything is maximally good. And when Totapuri got that, he was like, I did it. That's when he felt truly like he had completed his realization, and he left Sri Ramakrishna, and happily he went off a devotee of Mother. It's a remarkable like episode between the two of them. The reason I point all of this out is to say that the Kaula Marga is seemingly a Vamachara path in that it has transgressive elements. But what it means to be a Kaula actually is to think about Shiva and Shakti in union. That's the idea. And so that means both of these elements must be perfectly developed. What is Kaula Nadi? What is Kaula Marga? It's the movement in the Avadut Nadi. It's the movement in the Shushumna Nadi. Kaula Marga is the path of Kundalini. It's the Kula Yoga. Kundalini moves in the Shushumna, you see. So that means one does what Sri Ramakrishna does in a sense, where you become a perfect ritualist and you master all the artistic, sentimental, poetic, devotional elements of the tradition, and you don't feel at all that there's going to be any conflict with the more like rigorous, kind of stern parts of the tradition. That's why I love doing puja, I love doing homa. Homa comes from a more like stern thing, I think. There's more like Pingala energy there. Whereas puja, it's a bit more feminine, if I can use that word, where it's more water. It's more about water and it's more about like being inside, like things like that. We do both of them. And then we do japa, there's a bit of both. There's an element of like creative visualization, but there's also an element of being still. You have to keep your mind fixed on Kali. Decide you're going to do 100 malas a day and actually stick to that. That's all like Pingala Nadi. But then what are you meditating on? The Vamini, the goddess who is breaking all the rules. That's why this is so hard. If you're feeling like conflicted, it's because every single day, right, Kalidasi, your sadhana is putting you in a position where opposites are being brought together and you're being forced to reconcile it, which you cannot do in your mind. It has to be this energetic event that happens. So having said all of this, you can see in what we've just described elements of Visarjan, Tottapuri going to like put himself in the water, elements of Bali, Sri Ramakrishna performing an animal sacrifice to Kali, like that, but he is the animal that's being offered to Kali. Also, Bali in a more refined sense of the Bali of God, killing the Buddha on the road. You see, like, there's so many of these things that are there in Sri Ramakrishna's Leela. I want to close his lecture now by pointing out to what happens next in Kali Puja, which I think is a ritualistic expression of all the stuff we've just been talking about. It's time for us to go and drown our mother. How about it, friends? It's time to go drag her by the hair, even, to the water and push her head under the water and hold it there until she stops kicking and screaming. And that's how it feels, you know. Here's a gata. We love her so much. We've installed mother. Oh, you can't say it. This gata. Mother was installed in the gata. And she's not installed in the image, she's installed in the yantra, she's installed in the gata. And we feel her to be there. We pray to her in the gata, in the womb. And by praying to her in the water within the womb, we pray to her as the womb, and we are within the womb, and we have our being in the womb, we're under the jurisdiction of the womb, etc. It's such an important symbol. But it's not just a symbol. Like I was saying after Navaratri, it's the living presence of the divine, which you feel tangibly, palpably. If people can tell you, oh, it's just an idol, you won't listen to them. You know what you know, you feel what you feel. And then now we say, having worshipped Mother Kali with fire and fervor on the first Saturday after Kali Puja, or on the morning after Kali Puja, go and drown her. Like literally take the pot to the water and immerse it. Or in the case of like a bigger puja with a big murti, take that murti, which arguably you worked really hard to build, in which you invoke the presence of the Divine Mother. Take that wonderful piece of art, which the entire community sacrificed so much for, and then go and destroy it. Like the Buddhists blowing out their mandalas after they build them, you know? Or like go and take your mother, who is now in this image, and drown her. Like it's so hard to do that because after Kali Puja, you've humanized her so much. Like she's here. Like you like feel like she's eating the food, she's like enjoying things, she's responding to things like a human being. Like you get into this, you're mad because you look and you see things in the image. You see her smiling, you see her blinking, she's doing this, doing that. She's like liking this, she's not liking that. Like she's such a human, she's a person in your house. Because our puja is so powerful that it should give you this feeling that she is there. That's called prana pratishtha or ghata sthapana. It's like when you do this ritual correctly, and once I was very insecure about whether or not I had done it correctly. I told you the story where I was hired to do puja for someone, and it was a prana pratishtha. It was the first time I ever did it. So when I did my own prana pratishtha, I felt like no problem. Like I feel mother's presence now more than ever before. But there was no way for me to discount that as like my own idiosyncratic projection. But if I was going to do prana pratishtha for someone else, I suddenly became very self-conscious because like, what if it doesn't work? Like, what if I fail to like invoke mother into this image? Then these people will have an image that is not invoked and not awakened, and they won't be able to have their temple. Like, what's the karma of like I don't know. So I was confused, and so I did the puja, and it seemed really like to have some effect, but I still doubting that. So I went to Gurudeva and I said, "How do I know that it happened?" I did it to the T to the best of my ability, as far as I knew how. It seemed like there was a shift in the room, like there was a clear sense. I felt palpable. I was feeling it, and I went to check in with the host, and I was like, what do you think? And they were explaining it, but I don't know if they were only explaining it because I didn't know if anyone was for real or if we were all just full of shit. So I asked my Gurudeva, how do I know prana pratishtha worked? And he looked at me and he said, simply mantra is mantra, Baba. And that put an end to the discussion. Which is like either you have faith in your mantras or you don't. You know, and now you have talked to Bhairav Anand about pronunciation, because arguably sincerity is one thing, pronunciation might be more important here. Because if is mantra, you have to say it right. See, it's a scientific claim, tantric claim, not a bhakta's claim. So if mantra is mantra, I said the mantras and mother should be there. And that's what I'm realizing now too. Mantra is mantra, Baba. You know, like if I do prana pratishtha and I say the mantras, she's going to come into the image. And so that's why it's a very complicated ritual. The mantras are incredibly complicated and delicate and difficult to say. The nyasas, everything is so delicate, so refined, because the energy you're working with is so refined. And then she comes into the image. There she is in all her splendor and glory. Om Danyoham Kritikadyoham Safalam Jeevitam Mama Agatasya Mata Maheshwaram Madashram. And there's a mantra. Om Eyehi Bhagavatyamba Eyehi Bhakti Anugraha. Oh mother, you here like basically the mantra is saying, oh my God, what the fuck? Like by your grace, you've decided to come here into this image. It's a mantra that we say at the end of Prana Pratishtha that expresses our delight and surprise that mother condescends to being in the image. I haven't fully translated. One day I'll sit down and do a nice translation of that mantra to the best of my ability, and we can go over it. Somebody remind me how it opens? The one Om Danyoham Krita Krita Om Safalam Jeevitam Mama, like that. A few lines back. I'm blanking. Padmavanataste. Um, right. But there's a beautiful mantra. We'll translate it together sometime. But basically it says, you are now in this image. Yehi, like come here by your grace into this image. It's like here. Yavatvam, tavatvam sustira bhava. Oh, this line. Yavatvam pujayashyami tavatvam sustira bhava. Delightful line. Yavat tavat. Wherever, there, like yadvat tadvat, wherever I worship you. Yavat tvam pujayishyami. Wherever I worship you, O mother. Tavatvam sustira bhava. There you abide. So, like, that's a kind of a beautiful claim because even if you don't do prana pratishtha and if you just worship Kali every single day, wherever she is worshipped, there she will go. So, even the act of worshipping is a kind of prana pratishtha. So, that very mantra like helps you relax. Like, you said all the mantras, you did prana pratishtha, but the very fact that you're worshipping is a prana pratishtha. She'll come, she's there. So, all these mantras basically say, like, here is the mother. Look, that image, that's the mother. So you've said all of this. You've done these mantras, and you for the whole week, maybe until the first Saturday of Kali Puja, after Kali Puja, you do everything. It's like, bye, Ma Lucia, Jaima, Jaima. You've done everything in your power to humanize Ma, and it works. It really works. Like Kali Puja really fucking works. Like what the fuck? Like if you've done drugs and you come to Kali Puja and you like sit there sober and you experience Kali Puja, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like it's like more psychedelic than so many things. It just really fucking works. And I know that. And still, every Kali Puja comes and goes, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't even understand why this is so real. Like, I almost don't want it to be because it's philosophically problematic for me that it is so real, that mantras are so literal, that like everything is so dualistic. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so having said all of this, how then will you immerse mother who you for so long now seen in the image? Because you have to immerse the image and immerse the gata. So look, the Kali Puja itself invites the very thing that Sri Ramakrishna did, which is cut mother in half in order to experience the formless. The puja has that inbuilt as part of the process. The first Saturday after Kali Puja or the morning after Kali Puja, you take the gata and you go to the river and you say a few mantras and you immerse the mother. I'll show you those mantras now. It's puja class after all, but I'll show you those mantras which you use to immerse the Divine Mother once and for all. I mean, not once and for all, but in your case, it might be. And then next year, you'll bring her back. But be that as it may, you're not thinking about next year. Next year is too long. You're not even thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about the fact that this deity who you've had in your household, you're now dragging into the river to drown her. She wants to go, as I'll point out in a few months, but you don't want her to go. So you feel so reluctant for it, and people cry and they like drag the murti. They don't want you to drown it. It's a beautiful scene in India actually to see people fighting over the murti. The attachment become very depressed sometimes after the murti is immersed, as if God has really left them. So, like, to your question, like, what if she leaves you? This is a sadhana you must do eventually. Like, you must immerse her. Like, this feeling of like, she's in my life, like, it's a legitimate concern that if I go to the river and I put the image in the river, what will my house feel like afterwards? Because for the week of 9 days of Navaratri or for the week of Kali Puja or of Kali Puja, it really felt like she was in my house. And if we even once feel like that energy, like in our lives, in our house, we know it's so real. It's the most real I've ever felt. Like if I don't feel this and I have to like live in this world and go around and like talk to people and like talk about the weather and like watch sports and kill myself. What is the point of life if there isn't this? Like that feeling of Kali's in my house is like Daft Punk is playing in my house. So Kali's in my house, that feeling of Kali being in my house is so significant that now I'm going to tell you tomorrow you'll take the gata, immerse the gata, you'll think, oh no, but then Kali won't be in my house. And you'll be right because she was in your house as a gata, as a pot, or as a yantra, or as a murti. And now you have to take that murti to the ocean or to the river and immerse it. So it's like conversion enlightenment. Like you feel God's presence first, then you kill God and you realize the self. And then vice versa. And you do it all over again. It's like this pulse between Shiva and Shakti. The whole thing is there in the puja. How sophisticated, how refined. The puja itself answers the question. And that's why when we were doing the Homa yesterday, I was so excited because Yogeshwari had those questions about nature, as you pointed out. The Homa itself is the answer. And if you have any questions, just look at the Padati. Look at the structure of the puja. You'll see it perfectly mirrors what you did, what you are doing, and what you will do. So what are we doing now? We are worshiping Mother Kali. But what are you going to do? You're going to kill her. That's why it's like, I'm hoping like right now we can already get a sense of what's coming up so we can train ourselves to be a little more violent, a little more bloodthirsty, as it were. Not to say that, I mean, like, obviously, but a little more like ruthless with ourselves, ruthless with her. like a kind of like impulsiveness. Like I don't care what this, like if this is dharmic or adharmic. I don't care if I'm gonna die or if my life is gonna be meaningless. And I don't care if killing God means the whole world will disappear. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because I have to do it. Oh, and by the way, Visarjan, so coming back to the Visarjan now before that anecdote. So this idea of like, oh fuck. Before the anecdote, what was I saying about Visarjan? Like we have to kill our mother, now we're taking the thing to the
You were speaking of how puja incorporates the act.
Thank you. So, oh yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's what helped me to reminisce about like some of those events that happened in the puja. Okay, so yeah, so Yogeshwari had a very interesting question about uh, nature worship. So she asked Gurudeva. Yesterday, we all got a chance to like sit with Gurudeva and have like some satsang with him, and so everyone got to ask some questions. And Yogeshwari was asking like, where's the role of like nature worship, worship of trees, of the animals, like that's there but not really emphasized. It seems like the Vedic tradition, Tantric tradition is more cosmological. It's more about like transcendental forces as opposed to immanent embodied earthly forces. So even we talk about Prakriti, it's not really earth as it were, like whereas Prithvi Devi kind of vibe, you know. So she asked about it, and Gurudeva, of course, gave a really nuanced and subtle answer about Prakriti being included, but not like all this stuff. Then we went to the Homa, and it was so exciting because everything that we did in the Homa was like directly answering her question. And in a way that was really nourishing because like we said, okay, now Ma, we have to apologize to the earth. We lit the fire on the earth, so the earth got hot. So see, this is the mudra, this is the mantra. Kshamasvame. What does the mantra mean? Sorry, earth. Kshamasve. Oh earth, please forgive me. I lit a fire and you got hot. Then Agnitvam samudram gacha. Oh fire, now go to the ocean. Oh fire, we speak to the fire. We say, please go to the ocean. Then, as you pour the ghee on top of the fire, there's a wonderful explosion of smoke. You know, Dhumavati is there. Then you say, Om Prithvitvam Shitala Bhava. Oh earth, be cool. It's like all of that, you know, that moment in the ritual where you're interacting with the fire, with the earth, like that. That was the answer to a question, actually. Like, where does all this fit in the context of the philosophy? Like, it's there in the ritual, you know. It's not something you need to philosophize about. So, having said all that, the rituals answer every one of your questions. Like if you have a question about sadhana, chances are if you master your rituals, you will not only have the answer in your ritual, but you'll actually have a means of like living that answer. So now what will you do? If your question is, will God forget me? Or like, will I have to forget God? The answer unfortunately is yes. Like what you have now, you have to kill it. You have to kill your mother. Like that's what's being asked of you. But again, it doesn't have to happen now. It has to happen at some point. I have to kill you, you have to kill me, you have to kill your mother. At some point, all of this must end. Oh, wait, it's really scary because like some people are going to take it literally, and that we're not even that scared about that. But like the claim here is that this happens because the puja sequences it. Therefore, it's also making not a prescriptive claim, like I was saying, but a descriptive claim about your own individual journey as a sadhaka. Preliminary purifications, becoming God, and then worshiping God, and then like immersing God. Like the whole thing, you can map it onto Sri Ramakrishna's life. You see how all of Sri Ramakrishna's life is just a puja. And all of the puja is just your own personal experience of God. Anyway, as part of the puja, to close this class, I want to give you the what happens next kind of talk. After Kali is worshipped, even after Durga is worshipped during um Navaratri. And of course, like we were talking with Rakta Rupini so much about like Sara Kali and the Black Madonna and all, how the Roman traditions, they also, because you know they're direct lineage, they also immerse Kali, Sara Kali and Black Madonna. So this Visarjan, this immersion is so important because it concludes everything. It it kills God. And therefore you realize something more about God. That actually she can't leave you. But it's one thing to say that, as we know. You know, you're a thinker, you're a philosopher, you're an intellectual person. You know how cheap it is to say that. Like I get so it's such a pet peeve with me now. All this like it just feels so cheap because we have an answer for everything, but it's not going to help you actually. And it's so clear that it won't help you because these questions are not asked by the mind. They're asked, you know, in a deeper place. So if I have a question like, what if God forgets me? The answer to the question is actually bring God into a pot, like actually do this, like really feel her in the pot through the mantra, then worship her for a week, and then now take that pot to the ocean and immerse it. In fact, it's uncanny that you're staying till Sunday. It's like just uncanny because everyone else went home, right? But you're here for the Visarjan. Like you'll be here for the next part of the puja, which is like who can take so much time to stay for so long? Like everybody came for the time they could, but you're the only one who's strangely enough come from far away who's going to be here for the Visarjan, and you're the one who needs it. Like you're the one who, above all, needs to kill your mother and realize that she's you and she's always with you, right? Like me telling you that's not gonna help. That's why I don't like to answer your questions. Because you're like, let me just say it like now, like you're too advanced for this kind of answer. I don't think that's what you need. It's not gonna help you. So that's why I hope you don't mind if I just like don't have it. I don't answer you usually. And like I know you asked me so many questions this week, but I'm answering other people, but I'm like not answering you. It's by design. I don't think I have an answer for you. Because I can give you philosophy, but you know that already. You can give the answer actually. Like because you know the philosophy, you've thought it through, you've understood it. But it's not until you get on that boat with us and like put her in the water that the answer will appear, you know. So that's the thing. The tradition has the answer. Like not necessarily philosophically, but ritually. And so by doing the ritual, we each one we need a different moment in the ritual, and the whole thing done at completion should complete you. Actually, the whole thing should be enough. One Kali Puja is it. Like one Kali Puja is all it takes. One Navaratri, I always say like one Navaratri is all it takes to like finish with sadhana, as it were, because it includes like every aspect and dimension of that sadhana. So finally we take mother to the ocean, we immerse her, and we say bye bye. And now I'll tell you one final anecdote. I wasn't there for this. This happened years ago, way before my time. Geeta Prana Mataji was making the images at that time, I think. And I was hearing this story from Geeta Prana. She's a nun that now lives in the Swamiji house in Ridgely. She lives in Ridgely Manor. So she visited us, and she used to be in Hollywood. Of course, she was a Southern California girl. And then when she went to Ridgely, I never met her until she visited us. So she told me the story. She was very excited to meet me, though. So I was really excited about meeting her because she had known about me, and she herself was a Kali worshiper. And so, of course, naturally, when I met her, I was like, just like, tell me everything you know about Kali. Like, what has your adventure been like, etc. I was like, just so exciting. So she told me this crazy story. It's not crazy, it's just poignant and profound. So she didn't like that they were immersing the murti. She felt kind of bad about it. Like it was hard for her, the image maker, to then go and put the image in the ocean. And she also felt like would Kali want this, you know? So one day they went out in the boat and out of Newport Beach, they take the boat and then songs are sung. There's a whole ritual around it. It's very ecstatic, very procession. We go as a procession. And then Kali was immersed. And Gita Prana said, I had never seen something sink so quickly. You know, she suddenly got this impression that like Kali like really couldn't wait to jump in. It's like the opposite. The goat like drags its feet. It doesn't want to be killed. So you kind of like drag this animal. Like it's so sad, you know, because in the beginning the animal doesn't really know what's going to happen. So it's kind of chill with you. But from experience, like I've noticed that there's a moment when it gets the idea. That's the moment that actually I can't like it just hurts me so much because like it's just like so innocent. The animal is so innocent. And it probably can't understand why this is about to happen to it, you know? And I'm the author of this act. And like I can feel the switch when the animal suddenly like from your energy or for something like just really like, oh fuck, like this is what's gonna happen. And then it will fight. Like, and thank God that's life, like trying to assert itself. It doesn't want to die. And so it fights like tooth and claw to the final moment. And even after that final moment, the eyes blink and the legs thrash and like it fights for its life long after it was beheaded. It's a terrible thing to see because it's like this thing is dead and it can't accept that it's dead. You know, like that's like even worse. Like I've killed this motherfucker, and even having killed him, he is still torturing me. After death, he is still confronting me with my crime because he doesn't agree. You know, he didn't agree when I dragged him there. He didn't agree when I killed him, and he still isn't agreeing after I've killed him. You know, so I've had instances where like I'm holding a rooster and like getting the blood from the rooster, and I think this guy is dead, and suddenly the legs start moving again. Like, yeah, suddenly has a muscle spasm. We're like, bro, I'm like, you're fucking dead. Stop like making this so hard for us both. I don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. Like, what the fuck? And like that sensation of it doesn't want to die is there in the paśu. It's not really as much there in the human. You notice this. The animal is very unlikely to commit. So I know dodo birds and stuff like that, but like they have a sense of survival that's like different from we like want to kill ourselves sometimes. Humans have this weird thing where like we kind of want to, but we don't want to. We're kind of in between. Kali, this is interesting, is the exact opposite experience with the paśu, the killing of the goat, as it is with the killing of Kali, the killing of God. No. Actually, you know, we are immoral in the extreme. Because we don't just kill others, we kill ourselves and we kill our mothers. Others, ourselves, and our mothers. So like notice like this adharma to the absolute but like here's the thing, the crazy thing about it, when you bring Kali to the ocean to put her into the water, as Gita Prana Mataji narrated to me, she jumps. She can't wait to go there. She wants to plunge into the void and just like be one with the void. Kali craves the void. And I remember when Gita Prana said this, my Guru Deva was there and I was sitting on the floor. And Gita Prana said, just in a simple kind of way, she was like, yeah, simple, direct, and powerful way. She was like, yeah, she seemed like she jumped out of our hands, couldn't wait to get into the water. Once she got into the water, she sank into those black waters faster than I've ever seen anything sink. And she said that freed her. She was like, I no longer felt bad about it. I no longer felt like this was violence. I suddenly understood that like her desire is to come into form and then her desire is to go back into formlessness and vice versa. And when she said that, I spontaneously went Mahakala Kama Kula Kali Kayam. And then my guru looked right at me and he nodded gravely. And that moment I'll never forget, which was a kind of like, yeah, that was what Shankara meant. Or like, look, this is one way in which you can understand her sexual desire. Like the pure sexual need to like dissolve and it's like her orgasm, like a feeling of like she just needs to be one with Mahakala. Mahakala Kama Kula Kali Kayam. And that's what was happening in the water. Her image was plunging into the water. She was penetrating the depths of the ocean, dissolving into the ocean, becoming one with the ocean. So, what is death? It's sex. Like, sex is this desire, but it's really a desire towards death, like le petit mort. But what is death? Death is the desire for the formless, for the absolute spiritual realization. So it's sex, death, and rebirth. Sex, death, and realization. That's what this season is about. It's like this, and that's what Kali is about. And that's why we are Kali Bhaktas, who, like, weirdly enough, have entered into this energy because our prana flows in that way. So we're interested in sex, that energy is there. Death, that energy is there. And you can even argue like death is higher than sex, because sex is reaching for death and death is reaching for God. So sex, death, and God are all one. You see, God is rebirth, what are you, transformation, whatever, like God. The third thing here is God. So if you kill others, that's called sex, actually. Because what are you doing? You're stabbing them, you're trying to absorb them and like you want to kill them. And therefore there's a violence in sex. But there's also a deep intimacy in death. When you're being killed, sometimes that's the closest you've ever felt to a person. It's like a deep intimacy between you and your murderer. You know? But only Kshatriyas can understand this because for most people, like the battlefield is like scary, but for a Kshatriya, it's ecstatic. Like the battlefield is where you go to meet God because either you kill, which is awesome, or you get killed, which is also awesome. Because in both cases, life is intense. The night before you drink and you party and then you go and you fight your war. And it's like it's also great because you're living as a warrior. And so killing is not a problem and being killed is not a problem. Both are equally available to you as a warrior. But of course, that's the dharma of it. Now, here the claim is that when you kill others, it's a kind of sex because there's an intimacy. Or when you have sex with others, it's kind of death because both of them require a kind of intimacy. And both of them require that two become one, that you give up something to become something else. Something must be shed. And there's blood involved in both acts. It's remarkable, actually. There's like sometimes the act of stabbing. That's why horror movies are sometimes very erotic. There's a link between like the erotic and horror, terror and arousal. Like the word arousal means both to be afraid and to be um like turned on. Like they're kind of the same. Like it is dark. Obviously, this whole thing is very dark and edgy and like obviously a bit problematic, and you have to be careful in these kinds of spaces and whatnot. Because it's dark, because it's actually like, and yesterday we had this beautiful conversation about how people might be the safest in such spaces because in spaces where it's all love and light, that's where all the abuse happens, where places that are truly dark are truly open, you know what you get. Like, there's more room for consent, more room of, empowered action. Thank you, Kalidasi. So now this idea, Kali, having gone into sex and death already, like you've gone past the Swadhisthana, you've transcended sex, and sex has become death, the Thanatos to lose yourself in God. But now there's God. What will happen next? God also must die. It's that second death. Say le petit mort. How about we call it the le grand mort? How about that? The great death. If the le petit mort is the orgasm, the great death is what happens on that fucking funhouse, like rickety rental boat on Saturday morning after Kali Puja when we take the image and put it into the water. That's the Le Grand Mot. We see Mother Kali in form, and then we see that form dissolve into the ocean, and it does something to you. And like it's ecstatic. There's something so ecstatic about that. Like something happens on the boat, I think, where I see like conservative older people acting a little wilder, a little freer with one another. It's like, huh. So that's Visarjan. And I was thinking to show you some Visarjan mantras, but never mind, you guys. I'm not in the mood to like translate some Sanskrit mantras and like explain some things and it's like Vedic stuff. And it's like, anyway, let's just do it next week. I think I'm done. I think that's it. That's all there is. There isn't any more. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Kali Arpanam Astu. Jai Thakur, Jai Swamiji, Jai Guru.